Chapter 729. Everyone chatted with Ji Tianxing outside the secret chamber for a while before taking their leave one after another. Kuan Wu, Ling Yixiong, and Fox Princess left, but Yun Yao and Long Yunxiao stayed. Ji Tianxing led the two into the study room, closed the door, and started to discuss matters. After the three of them sat down, the study room quieted down, and the atmosphere became solemn. Ji Tianxing said with a serious face, "Although I am out of danger and have successfully removed the curse, this matter is not over yet. I have analyzed this matter before, and I feel that there is something fishy about it. There must be something wrong. Son of Heaven, Yao Yao, tell me the whole story from the beginning to the end." Yun Yao and Long Yunxiao nodded in agreement. Obviously, they also felt that there was something wrong. Long Yunxiao started with the conflict between Yun Yao and Ensuan, and narrated the entire story from beginning to end. After Ji Tianxing heard it, he frowned and said with a serious tone, "It seems that the conflict between Yao Yao and the heavenly concubine, the disappearance of the heavenly concubine, and the trap set by the demon king Xue Qianjiang are all related. I suspect that someone is deliberately instigating the relationship between Yao Yao and the heavenly concubine, making them fight each other." Long Yunxiao frowned and asked with doubt, "If someone is really doing this, what is their purpose?" "Of course it is you." Ji Tianxing stared at Long Yunxiao and said with a serious tone, "Because you are the key person between the two of them." Long Yunxiao was even more confused. Ji Tianxing did not continue to explain, and said with a calm tone, "We can analyze it in reverse. If Yao Yao and the heavenly concubine completely break off their relationship, who will benefit the most? Who can clearly grasp our movements, and play the role of instigating them at the crucial moment?" Yun Yao frowned and pondered. Hearing his reminder, she suddenly thought of something. Her eyes flashed as she looked at Ji Tianxing beside her and asked, "Tianxing, are you suspecting Lan Huixin?" Ji Tianxing nodded and said calmly, "Ever since we met Lan Huixin and she humbly begged to stay by your side, I've been suspicious of her. She was originally the #1 genius beauty of the Long Heaven domain. Not only could she marry into a rich and powerful family as a madam, she could also cultivate diligently and become a famous martial arts genius. But why would she bow and scrape to stay by your side, even willing to be a maid? I don't believe that she has no ulterior motives." Yun Yao nodded her head in agreement and said, "Lan Huixin has always dreamed of becoming a heavenly consort, a sparrow flying to a branch to become a phoenix. If the heavenly concubine and I were to completely break off our relationship, of course, it would be most beneficial to her. Perhaps she would be able to take advantage of the situation." Hearing this, Long Yunxiao hurriedly waved his hand and explained solemnly, "Impossible. Even if I don't marry for the rest of my life, I would never take a fancy to Lan Huixin." Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao ignored him and didn't react at all. Yun Yao continued, "Moreover, the initial cause of this matter was Lan Huixin telling me that the emperor visited Yun Yao Palace several times and had something important to discuss with me. After I went to Yun Xiao Palace, I ran into the heavenly consort Ensuan and had a conflict with her." Long Yunxiao suddenly understood and nodded repeatedly, "So that's how it is. No wonder Yao Yao suddenly came to find me that day. I thought she had something important to discuss with me. I didn't expect that it was actually Lan Huixin who deliberately instigated things. It seems that the heavenly consort didn't eavesdrop on our conversation in the side hall that day by chance. It's very likely that she was instigated by Lan Huixin." After the three confronted each other and analyzed the situation, the truth was immediately revealed. Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment, then said in a solemn tone, "Lan Huixin is so scheming, sinister, and despicable. She must be eliminated. She can't be allowed to continue staying in Yun Yao Palace. However, these are only our speculations. We don't have any real evidence, so we can't convict her." Yun Yao also looked angry and said in a cold voice, "If it weren't for Lan Huixin's instigation, there wouldn't be so many twists and turns. The heavenly consort and I wouldn't be in prison, and Tianxing wouldn't have almost lost his life. I treated her like a sister, but I didn't expect her to be so vicious. We must get rid of her. Otherwise, it will be difficult to dispel the hatred in my heart." To Yun Yao, Ji Tianxing was the most important person. It was fine if Lan Huixing tricked her, but she almost killed Ji Tianxing. This was an unforgivable capital crime. Long Yunxiao was also filled with anger, and a trace of killing intent appeared in his heart. But without evidence, he couldn't convict Lan Huixing. He could only think hard about how to find evidence. The three of them were silent for a while. Then Ji Tianxing suddenly thought of something and smiled. I got it. I have a way to make Lan Huixing give herself away very soon. Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao's eyes suddenly lit up, and they looked at him expectantly. What is it? Ji Tianxing revealed a playful smile and said in a low voice, Lan Huixing only instigated a dispute between Yao Yao and the heavenly consort. She didn't have the right to leave the monarch mansion without permission. But later, when the heavenly consort left the monarch mansion, she was immediately knocked out and kidnapped by a mysterious powerhouse. This means that Lan Huixing must have an accomplice. It's very likely that the accomplice is that mysterious powerhouse. Didn't Yao Yao just say that she suspects that the mysterious powerhouse is Murong Lingfeng? If that's the case, we can do this. Ji Tianxing told Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao about his idea. The two of them immediately nodded in agreement and looked expectant. Good. Let's do it. This is a good idea. It will definitely make her reveal her flaws. Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded. If that's the case, then let's not delay any longer. We'll take action immediately to avoid any unexpected changes. Yun Yao and Long Yunxiao nodded in agreement. They immediately followed him out of the study and began to take action. After Yun Yao left Tianxing Palace alone, she rushed back to Yun Yao Palace as fast as lightning. She had just sat down to rest when Lan Huixing walked into the hall with a bowl of spiritual tea. Sister Yun, you're finally back? Please have some tea. Yun Yao calmly picked up the teacup and tasted the tea silently. Lan Huixing stood aside and pretended to be concerned. Sister Yun, you've been in Tianxing Palace for 5 days. You've made me worried sick. By the way, how's young Master Ji? Has he broken the curse? Yun Yao nodded and said in a relieved tone, Fortunately, Tianxing is extraordinary. He's already out of danger. Lan Huixing was a little disappointed, but she still put on a pleasantly surprised expression. That's great. Young Master Ji is indeed lucky. Sister Yun, you can finally rest assured. Yun Yao smiled and continued, Not only has Tianxing woken up, but we've also found a useful clue. We already know who kidnapped the heavenly consort. Lan Huixing was shocked when she heard this news. However, she didn't show it on her face. She pretended to be curious and asked, Sister Yun, who did you find? Chapter 730. Yun Yao was still calm and indifferent. She didn't have her guard up against Lan Huixing at all. When she heard Lan Huixing's question, she subconsciously said, That reckless guy is actually Murong. Speaking up to hear, Yun Yao suddenly realized something and hurriedly shut her mouth. However, when Lan Huixing heard the word Murong, her body suddenly trembled. A strange look flashed in her eyes. At this moment, Yun Yao took out a square black iron box from her sleeve. The iron box was made of cold cloud iron. It was abnormally strong and tough. Moreover, the surface of the box was engraved with array patterns and patterns. It was tightly sealed. According to that clue, we found a piece of evidence. This piece of evidence can pin down the mastermind. We have to continue our investigation in the next 2 days. When we find more clues, we can present this piece of evidence to the imperial court. That bastard dared to kidnap the heavenly consort. This is a capital offense that will result in the execution of his entire family. When the time comes, not only will that bastard be executed by the imperial court, but even his family will be severely punished by the imperial court. Yun Yao held the fine iron box with both hands as she spoke in a cold and stern tone. Her eyes were filled with anticipation. Lan Huixing quickly nodded in agreement. She also said angrily, Sister Yun is right. That guy really deserves to die. He dared to offend the imperial court. He should be severely punished. After she finished speaking, she secretly looked at the box and memorized its shape and patterns. Yun Yao held the iron box and walked to the bedroom. She calmly ordered, All right, Huixing, you can leave first. I want to rest for a while. Lan Huixin bowed and quickly left the room. However, after she left the room, she hid by the window and secretly peeked at the scene in the room. Yun Yao held the iron box and walked to the innermost side of the room. She pressed a mechanism on the wall and opened the secret compartment protected by the array. The secret compartment was embedded in the wall. It was almost impossible to see from the outside. It was very hidden. Yun Yao carefully put the evidence into the secret compartment. Then she sat on the bed and meditated to rest. Seeing this scene, Lan Huixin frowned and quietly turned to leave. She remained calm and collected as she quietly left Yun Yao Palace. Riding a spirit bird, she flew into the sky at lightning speed. About an hour later, the spirit beast flying bird landed outside the gate of the towering Wind Palace. After exchanging a few words with the guard, she was led through the gate by the guard. Half an hour later, she met Murong Lingfeng in a secret room filled with spiritual qi. Murong Lingfeng's expression was very cold. There was still anger in his eyes, and the anger in his heart had not dissipated. Obviously, Ji Tianxing's previous words had angered him too much. Seeing Murong Lingfeng enter the secret room, Lan Huixin quickly bowed and greeted him respectfully, "Young Master Murong." Murong Lingfeng walked to the throne in the secret room and sat down. He asked with an expressionless face, "Why have you come to find this young master?" Lan Huixin did not dare to talk nonsense. She quickly said, "Young master, Yun Yao just returned to her residence and told me that she found some clues about who kidnapped the heavenly concubine." She had inadvertently mentioned the word Murong, but she didn't say anything else. Also, she found a piece of evidence. Lan Huixin told her everything that had happened before and what Yun Yao had said, word for word. After Murong Lingfeng heard it, he immediately frowned. His eyes became gloomy and cold. He pondered silently and thought to himself, "They actually found evidence? And they have to hand it over to the imperial court? How is this possible? This young master is very meticulous. I will never leave any evidence behind. However, this matter is very important. There must not be any mistakes or accidents. Could it be, when this young master was fighting with that demon Xue Qianjiang, I accidentally left some evidence behind? It's very likely. Only when this young master was fighting with Xue Qianjiang in Yan Hui Mountain would there be a mistake." Thinking of this, Murong Lingfeng's mood became more and more irritable. Yun Yao, that bitch. And Ji Tianxing and Long Yunxiao, those two bastards, they will all die a horrible death. If they really found the evidence and handed it to the imperial court, not only will this young master be executed by the imperial court, even the Murong family will suffer. No way. This young master will not let them succeed. Murong Lingfeng thought for a moment and immediately made up his mind. He ordered coldly, "Lan Huixin, after you return to Yun Yao Palace, you must find a way to steal that evidence. If that evidence is sent to the imperial court, we will all die. Do you understand?" Lan Huixin's eyes suddenly turned cold. She nodded solemnly and said, "Yes, young master." "Go." Murong Lingfeng waved his hand and gestured for her to leave. Lan Huixin bowed and left the secret room. After an hour, Lan Huixin rode on the flying bird and returned to Yun Yao Palace. At this time, it was already evening. The sky was dark, and lights were lit everywhere in Yun Yao Palace. Lan Huixin went to the kitchen and brought a bowl of spiritual porridge. She pretended to bring the porridge to Yun Yao. She took this opportunity to enter Yun Yao's room. However, when she entered the room, she found that there was no one in the room. Yun Yao was not there. Lan Huixin was full of doubts. She found an excuse and asked a maid about Yun Yao's whereabouts. The maid told her that an hour ago, Yun Yao seemed to have something urgent and rushed to Tianxing Palace. Lan Huixin was secretly delighted when she heard this news. She quietly sneaked into Yun Yao's room and found the secret compartment in the innermost corner of the room. Although the secret compartment had a protective array, this array was not a high-level one. It was very common in many secret rooms and rooms in Yun Yao Palace. Lan Huixin had already studied this kind of array. It only took her 100 breaths to crack the array. With a soft click, she finally opened the secret compartment. There was a black fine iron box lying quietly in the secret compartment. It was the one that Yun Yao had put in earlier. Lan Huixin's pretty face revealed a smug sneer. She quickly reached out and took out the fine iron box. However, at this moment, the dim room suddenly lit up with bright lights. The door of the room also opened with a creak. 3 figures appeared at the door. Lan Huixin was immediately shocked. She subconsciously turned her head to look at the door and saw that the 3 people were Yun Yao, Ji Tianxing, and Long Yunxiao. The 3 of them were staring at her coldly with mocking sneers on their faces. Lan Huixin's face instantly turned pale when she saw this scene. She immediately understood. This was Yun Yao's scheme. She had fallen into a trap. Her body instantly turned cold. Her heart felt as if it had fallen into an ice cellar. She froze on the spot, not knowing what to do. Lan Huixin, what else do you want to say now? You walked right into the trap so quickly. I really overestimated you. Chapter 731. Lan Huixin understood everything, but it was too late. She knew very well that since Yun Yao had deliberately set her up, she must have suspected her for a long time. Now that she had been caught red-handed, it was useless no matter how she quibbled. When Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and Long Yunxiao stepped into the room, she immediately knelt on the ground and put on a pitiful look, crying and begging. Sister Yun Yao, it's not what you think. I didn't do it on purpose. Please, I beg you, for the sake of my hard work in serving you. Lan Huixin cried and begged for mercy, but she was secretly looking for a way to escape. She quietly put the fine iron box into her sleeve, trying to hide it in her space ring. Although her little movements couldn't be hidden from Ji Tianxing and the other 2's eyes, they ignored her. However, the 3 of them turned a blind eye and allowed Lan Huixin to quietly hide the iron box in her spatial ring. The next moment, Lan Huixin, who was still kowtowing and begging for mercy, suddenly burst out with all her strength and rushed to the window as fast as the wind. She jumped and burst out with a dazzling true essence brilliance, wanting to break through the window and escape the room. However, Ji Tianxing had already expected her to escape. He waved his hand as fast as lightning and struck out a giant golden palm. Swoosh! The giant golden palm instantly grabbed Lan Huixin and pulled her back to Ji Tianxing. Lan Huixin's expression changed drastically. She was full of anxiety and anger. She urged her true essence to struggle desperately. Ji Tianxing sneered and crushed Lan Huixin's protective true essence with the giant golden palm. Moreover, an incomparably violent true essence gushed out of his palm and rushed into Lan Huixin's body crazily, destroying her essence core and meridians. Lan Huixin immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Her true essence quickly leaked out and lit up with true essence brilliance. In the blink of an eye, Lan Huixin's cultivation was crippled by Ji Tianxing and she became a weak ordinary person. Ji Tianxing casually threw her to the ground, making a muffled, plop, sound. Lan Huixin lay on the ground with her face full of blood. Her whole body twitched in pain and she let out a heart-wrenching scream. But, Ji Tianxing, you actually crippled my cultivation. You vicious bastard, I curse you. You'll die a horrible death. Lan Huixin was frightened and desperate. She cursed in pain and anger, her voice sharp and ear-piercing. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao did not pity her at all when they saw her disheveled appearance with blood all over her face. Yun Yao stared at her coldly and shouted with an icy expression, Lan Huixin. Back then, you claimed that you were homeless and begged me to stay. I didn't expect you to be so sinister and despicable. You purposely instigated a conflict between me and the heavenly concubine and almost caused Tianxing, me, and the heavenly concubine to lose our lives. What right does a venomous woman like you have to call others venomous? Tianxing only crippled your cultivation and didn't kill you. That's already the greatest mercy he could have shown you. Lan Huixin curled up on the ground and suddenly sneered as if she had lost her mind. She ignored the blood that kept coming out of her mouth and nose. I'm homeless? Begging? Don't you know why I begged so humbly and tried so hard to stay? You can all pursue your loved ones. Can't I do the same? Why is it that in order to pursue your loved ones, you are the ones who are deeply moved, but I'm called a vicious woman? I can't accept this. Lan Huixin's hair was disheveled and her face was covered in blood. Her voice was filled with grief, indignation, and excitement. Seeing her like this, Long Yunxiao said expressionlessly in a deep voice, "You're crazy. You don't know what love is at all." When he saw the blood on Lan Huixin's face on the ground, he frowned and said, "Don't let your blood dirty Yao Yao's room." As he spoke, he waved his hand and sent out a beam of light to clean up the blood on the floor. Then, Long Yunxiao carried Lan Huixin out of the room and brought her to a secret room. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao followed into the secret room and the three of them began to interrogate Lan Huixin. Yun Yao asked in a cold voice, "Lan Huixin, it's useless for you to explain anything now. Tell us the truth. Who ordered you to do this?" Long Yunxiao said in a dignified voice, "If you confess honestly, I can spare your life. Otherwise, not only will I kill you, but I will also exterminate your whole family." Hearing their words, Lan Huixin was stunned for a moment and then sneered contemptuously. "Pa, haven't you already found out who the mastermind is? Why are you interrogating me? Just go and catch him." Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao's expressions suddenly froze, and their eyes darkened. Ji Tianxing looked at Lan Huixin indifferently and said calmly, "When I crippled your cultivation just now, I noticed that there was an extremely strong poison hidden in your body. If I'm not wrong, the poison was planted by the mastermind, right? Lan Huixin, if you were forced, you should confess. Only in this way can you reduce your crime and beg the imperial court to be lenient with you." Ji Tianxing's words obviously hit the nail on the head and made Lan Huixin's body tremble. However, she pursed her lips tightly and remained silent, resolutely refusing to confess. She was silently calculating in her heart, whether it's Murong Lingfeng, the son of heaven, Ji Tianxing, or Yun Yao, they are all high and mighty princes. They treat human lives like grass. There's no difference. If I don't confess, Ji Tianxing and the rest won't kill me. They even want me to confess to Murong Lingfeng. Murong Lingfeng will also think of a way to save me. He won't let me confess to him. However, if I confess, I will no longer have any value. Not only will Ji Tianxing and the rest kill me, but Murong Lingfeng will also use the heart-devouring poison pill to kill me." Thinking of this, Lan Huixin made up her mind. She would rather die than reveal any information. No matter how Ji Tianxing and the rest interrogated her or even tortured her, she clenched her teeth and refused to reveal anything. In desperation, the three of them could only temporarily give up the interrogation and lock her up in the secret chamber. Of course, Long Yunxiao was full of anger and made a decision in front of Lan Huixin. "Lan Huixin, since you are so stubborn, don't blame me for being ruthless. I will immediately send an order to the Changtian region master to kill your entire Lan family. If you don't want to implicate your family, confess honestly when you have thought it through. As the saying goes, the Son of Heaven keeps his word." Once this order was passed down, it would be impossible to change it. The Lan family would definitely be killed. Long Yunxiao had originally thought that Lan Huixin would definitely be worried and might confess because of this. However, he didn't expect Lan Huixin to have no reaction to this. She was so selfish and cold that she didn't care about the life and death of her family. In this way, Long Yunxiao couldn't do anything for the time being. After Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and Long Yunxiao left the secret chamber, they entered the study room together. Chapter 732. Unknowingly, 2 days had passed. In these 2 days, Ji Tianxing, Long Yunxiao, and Yun Yao had tried several methods, but they still couldn't get Lan Huixin to confess. Lan Huixin had endured several kinds of torture. She was tortured until she was covered in bruises and dirty blood. She looked extremely miserable. However, her will was firm. She wouldn't say anything even if she died. In the end, Ji Tianxing and the other two were at their wits' end. Long Yunxiao then thought of a way. He decided to ask Divine Master Qianyi to perform the soul-searching secret technique to search Lan Huixin's soul and memory to find evidence. However, this method was cruel and vicious. It wasn't an ordinary method. Ordinary people wouldn't use it easily. The soul-searching secret technique also had a high failure rate. Once it failed, not only would they not get any clues, but Lan Huixin would also die. Late at night, Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and Long Yunxiao finally made a decision after weighing the pros and cons in the study room. Early the next morning, Long Yunxiao would look for Divine Master Qian Yi and ask him to perform the soul-searching secret technique. After the meeting, Ji Tianxing and Long Yunxiao got up and left Yun Yao Palace to return to their respective cave residences. Yun Yao had been too busy these days. She hadn't rested at all. Finally, she was physically and mentally exhausted. After Ji Tianxing and Long Yunxiao left, she also went back to her room to rest. Of course, she had already instructed the palace guards to guard the secret room where Lan Huixin was locked up. Although Lan Huixin's cultivation had been destroyed, Yun Yao was still very careful. She arranged for 4 bodyguard commanders to guard outside the secret room at all times to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Yun Yao Palace stood quietly on the mountain peak in the middle of the night. It was sleeping in the darkness. The palace was lit up with scattered lights. Not only were there guards guarding the roads and doors, but there were also a few groups of guards patrolling. Suddenly, in the dark night sky outside the palace, a black shadow silently flew over. Swoosh! This figure was as agile as a fallen leaf, as if it had merged with the darkness. It landed lightly in the woods east of Yun Yao Palace without alerting anyone. This person was dressed in black and had a veil covering her face. She looked tall and slim, like a young woman. However, his exposed eyes were as deep as the night sky. They were not as gentle and beautiful as a woman's, but contained a cold, killing intent. He hid in the forest filled with towering trees and observed quietly for a while before taking out a pair of dark gold scissors that were more than half a meter long. The simple golden scissors exuded a mysterious and powerful aura. Clearly, it was a soul-class magic treasure that surpassed the heavenly yuan level. This item was called the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors. According to legend, it was refined from the bones of a golden flood dragon. It possessed an incomparably powerful ability to break spells, as well as a terrifying destructive power. The man in black stared at the walls of Yun Yao Palace with burning eyes. After observing for a while, he saw the lines and key points of the defensive formation. He held the golden flood dragon scissors with both hands, silently urging his majestic true essence, causing the golden flood dragon scissors to shine with a dazzling golden light. Swish! He held the golden flood dragon scissors and fiercely cut at the defensive formation. Instantly, the defensive formation was broken, and a huge gap was cut out. After that, he put away the golden flood dragon scissors, and his figure flashed through the gap and entered the defensive formation. His body merged with the darkness as he silently flipped over the walls, passed through the courtyards and palaces, and crept towards the center of Yun Yao Palace. The man in black moved stealthily in Yun Yao Palace. Obviously, he was familiar with the layout of Yun Yao Palace. Moreover, his strength was extremely powerful. He was at least at the 7th level of the Heavenly Yuan stage, so he could easily avoid the detection of all the guards. After about an hour, the man in black entered the depths of the palace and crept into a dark tunnel underground. The tunnel was 100 meters long, and at the end of it was the secret room where Lan Huixin was locked up. The stone door of the secret room was tightly shut, and there were 4 guard commanders guarding outside the door. They were as motionless as stone statues. These 4 guard commanders were all elites with strength at the 9th level of the Origin Core stage. They were the strongest powerhouses below the Heavenly Yuan stage. In the entire Yun Yao Palace, other than Yun Yao, they were the strongest powerhouses. However, the man in black did not take these 4 guard commanders seriously at all. He concealed his aura and crept through the tunnel silently, approaching the 4 guard commanders quietly. When the guard commanders sensed that something was wrong, they turned their heads to look at the man in black. The man in black was less than 10 meters away from them. "Who's that? How dare you trespass into Yun Yao Palace? You're seeking death." The 4 guard commanders were instantly awakened. They drew their swords and sabers and were about to attack immediately. However, the man in black waved his hand and shot out a 5-colored spirit light that enveloped half of the tunnel. The 5-colored spirit light immediately formed a formation, blocking the sound and true origin waves in the formation. No matter how the man in black and the guard commanders fought, no matter how loud the noise was, it would not alert the people outside. Swoosh! When the guard commanders brandished their swords and sabers to attack, the man in black hurriedly took out the golden WRM scissors and urged his vast true origin to fiercely scissor the two guards that charged at him. Along with the sound of kacha-kacha, the two guards' swords and bodies were cut into two by the golden serpent scissors on the spot. The two guards were cut in half at the waist. Their corpses fell to the ground and sprayed out a large amount of blood. Colorful internal organs and intestines flowed out as well. Such a bloody and cruel scene instantly caused the other two guard commanders to be stunned, and they were terrified to the point their faces went pale. The two of them hadn't recovered from their shock when they saw a golden light flash before their eyes, and then their necks were cut off on the spot by the golden WRM scissors. The man in black killed the four guard commanders swiftly like a bolt of lightning, then hurriedly rushed to the door of the secret room. He didn't waste any time. He held the golden WRM scissors in his hand and slashed at the secret room's stone door. The secret room's defensive formation and thick and solid stone door were unable to withstand the might of the golden WRM scissors, and an enormous hole was instantly cut open. The formation collapsed and the stone door shattered. The man in black stepped into the secret room. In the gloomy and cold secret room, Lan Huixin was tied to the wall by a few iron chains. Her hair was disheveled, and her body was covered in blood. She lowered her head dispiritedly and silently gasped for breath. Hearing the sound of the stone door shattering, she was instantly jolted awake. She opened her eyes and looked at the man in black. When she saw the man in black's appearance, her dim and despairing eyes immediately surged with a trace of pleasant surprise and anticipation. "Young Master Murong, you've really come to save me." Lan Huixin's emotions were extremely excited, as if she had seen the hope of escaping with her life. The man in black reached out and took off his mask, revealing a face as beautiful as a beauty's. It was indeed Murong Lingfeng. He held the golden WRM scissors and cut the iron chains that bound Lan Huixin in a few moves. He asked expressionlessly, "Have you obtained the evidence?" Lan Huixin regained her freedom. She couldn't be bothered to treat her wounds as she hurriedly took out a fine iron box from her space ring. "I've obtained the item, but they still don't seem to be certain that it's you." Before she could finish speaking, the fine iron box in her hand was snatched away by Murong Lingfeng. Chapter 733. Bang! Lan Huixin was sent flying by Murong Lingfeng's palm and crashed into the wall of the secret chamber. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. She fell to the ground and twitched in pain. Murong Lingfeng's palm wasn't very powerful and didn't kill her on the spot. However, this palm had ignited the hundreds of poisons hidden in her body, causing them to erupt and frantically corrode her internal organs, flesh, blood, and bone marrow. The extreme pain caused by the hundreds of poisons immediately made Lan Huixin curl up like a shrimp. She trembled and black poisonous blood kept flowing out of her mouth and nose. However, she widened her eyes in disbelief and glared at Murong Lingfeng with resentment. She stuttered, "You do this to me?" She didn't understand. She had endured all kinds of torture and didn't expose Murong Lingfeng. Why did Murong Lingfeng still want to kill her? Murong Lingfeng put away the fine iron box and looked at her expressionlessly. He said in an indifferent tone, "You know something you shouldn't know. Only death can shut your mouth forever. Moreover, you have no more value. Of course, you should die." After saying that, Murong Lingfeng put on his mask again and turned to leave the secret chamber. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the darkness like a ghost. The secret chamber quieted down and only Lan Huixin was left. She stared at the door of the secret chamber with bloodshot eyes. Her face was as malevolent as a demon and black blood kept flowing out of her mouth and nose. At this moment, her heart was filled with regret, and her entire body was emitting resentment. She hated herself for provoking Murong Lingfeng. This person was simply a demon. She regretted even more that she kept the secret and didn't expose Murong Lingfeng. In the end, she ended up like this. However, no matter how much she regretted, it was useless. The hundreds of poisons had completely erupted and quickly corroded her body. Her flesh and blood had turned into pus. After a short 100 breaths, Lan Huixin's body had completely corroded and turned into a pool of black blood. the #1 genius of the Long Sky region, a peerless beauty whose name spread far and wide, had silently died like this. Not even her bones were left behind. At the same time, Murong Lingfeng had quietly left Yunyao Palace. He flew across the night sky as fast as lightning and quickly returned to Ling Feng Palace. When he returned to his room, he didn't even have time to change out of his black night suit. He couldn't wait to take out the iron box. This young master wants to see what evidence those 3 bitches have found to actually link it to this young master. Murong Lingfeng coldly snorted, filled with anger. He used the golden flood dragon scissors to break the formation and lock of the fine iron box. When he opened the box, he saw that it was empty except for a small piece of paper. He picked up the piece of paper and saw a line of bold and powerful words written on it. Murong Lingfeng, wash your neck and wait for death. Seeing this, Murong Lingfeng was so angry that his face turned ashen. He grabbed the fine iron box and threw it to the ground. Bastard! Too arrogant. This little bastard Ji Tianxing, this young master will definitely tear him to shreds. Previously, he had thought that Ji Tianxing and the others might have really found some evidence. In the end, this was just a trap set up by Ji Tianxing and the other 2. Murong Lingfeng had been too cautious and had revealed a flaw, which had even cost Lan Huixin's life. In the end, the so-called evidence was just a piece of paper, and it was a blatant provocation to him. Murong Lingfeng had always been arrogant and conceited. How could he endure such humiliation? He was so angry that his hands were trembling, and his eyes were filled with a dark red murderous aura. He couldn't wait to kill his way into Tianxing Palace and tear Ji Tianxing to shreds. However, he could only think about it. In the wee hours of the morning, the night was dark. Ji Tianxing was meditating in his room, consolidating his martial arts realm. Suddenly, a guard rushed to the door and reported to him. Master, Yunyao Palace just sent news. Something happened tonight. Miss Yunyao wants you to go over immediately. Ji Tianxing was instantly awakened. He frowned with a serious expression. Something happened at Yunyao Palace? Could it be Lan Huixin? He realized that something was wrong and immediately rushed out of Tianxing Palace. He rushed to Yunyao Palace as fast as a flash of light. Not long after, he arrived at Yunyao Palace and hurried to the depths of the palace. When he entered the dark underground passage, he saw that the ground at the end of the passage was covered in blood and internal organs. There were also a few horrifying corpses. Yun Yao and Long Yunxiao were standing at the door of the secret chamber, looking around with gloomy expressions. Ji Tianxing hurried over and asked in a heavy tone, "What happened?" Yun Yao answered with anger in her eyes, 2 hours ago, someone snuck into the palace and killed 4 of the guard commanders. They also killed Lan Huixin." What? Someone actually snuck into Yunyao Palace? Ji Tianxing frowned fiercely. His heart was surging with anger. Especially when he saw the corpses of the 4 guard commanders, he was even more furious. Long Yunxiao's face was also very gloomy. He said in a low voice, "The corpses of the 4 guard commanders are very horrible." Lan Huixin died even more miserably. As he said that, he pointed to the inside of the secret chamber. Ji Tianxing stepped into the secret chamber and saw that the iron chain on the wall had been broken. Lan Huixin's body was not in the secret chamber. However, there was a puddle of black blood on the ground that was about to solidify into black ashes. He looked at it and realized that it was the filthy blood left behind after Lan Huixin's corpse had decayed. It was highly toxic. Damn it! Murong Lingfeng actually used such a cruel method to kill Lan Huixin. What's the difference between him and the devil? Yun Yao also nodded and said in a heavy tone, "That's right. Lan Huixin was despicable and sinister. She deserved to die." However, Lan Huixin refused to confess. Murong Lingfeng still snuck into my palace and cruelly poisoned Lan Huixin to death. Murong Lingfeng's method is so vicious and ruthless. It makes one's hair stand on end. Long Yunxiao frowned, shook his head and sighed. It's a pity that Lan Huixin is dead. This clue is also broken. It's very difficult for us to find any evidence to prove that Murong Lingfeng is the mastermind behind this. Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and asked Long Yunxiao, "Son of Heaven, have you investigated the Yanhui Mountain? Murong Lingfeng and the Demon King Xue Qinjiang fought there. Perhaps they left some clues." Long Yunxiao shook his head again and said in a low voice, "I've already thought of this. A few days ago, I sent people to investigate carefully. Unfortunately, Murong Lingfeng was too cautious and meticulous. He didn't leave any evidence at all." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao were silent. The matter had reached a deadlock. They couldn't continue investigating. Although the three of them knew that the mastermind behind this was Murong Lingfeng, they had no evidence and couldn't convict Murong Lingfeng. After a moment, the three of them left the underground secret chamber and returned to the study. Long Yunxiao chatted with the two of them for a while and then left. Yun Yao pulled Ji Tianxing and said in a gentle tone, "Tianxing, we can only put this matter of Murong Lingfeng aside for now. We have to be more careful in the future." Chapter 734. Originally, Ji Tianxing had just broken through to the 6th level of the Sky Origin stage and wanted to cultivate in seclusion for a few more days to consolidate his cultivation. However, since Yun Yao had brought this up, he naturally couldn't refuse. Moreover, Yun Yao had said a long time ago that her parents had invited Ji Tianxing to stay at Cloud's Soul Palace for a few days. He couldn't refuse such a great offer, so of course he nodded and said, "All right, then I'll go back and make some preparations. We'll depart tomorrow morning." Yun Yao chatted with him for a while and gave him a few more instructions before letting him leave Yun Yao Palace. After Ji Tianxing returned to Tianxing Palace, he made the necessary arrangements. He found the steward and the commander of the guards and gave them instructions. After all, he would be delayed for at least half a month on this trip to Cloud's Soul Palace. After he finished his preparations, 4 hours had passed. The sun rose, and a new day had arrived. Ji Tianxing brought the little black dragon and Qian Yu to Yun Yao Palace. After he met up with Yun Yao, they rode on the spirit crane and left the monarch palace together, heading for Cloud's Soul Palace. During the journey, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao stood side by side on the spirit crane's back, intimately leaning against each other. The two of them were alone, flying between the blue sky and white clouds. Only then did their hearts truly calm down. Too many things have happened in the past half a month. Ji Tianxing wrapped his arm around Yun Yao's waist and held her in his arms. He said gently, "Yao Yao, you've suffered a lot during this period of time. You've been through many life and death situations, and you haven't had a good rest." Yun Yao gently shook her head and said sincerely, "I didn't suffer much, and it wasn't that dangerous. However, Tianxing, you took the blood dissipation curse for me and almost lost your life. You were the one who was truly in danger. I've already sent a message back to Cloud's Soul Palace and told my parents about this. My mother is very worried about you. My father said that when you go to Cloud's Soul Palace, he must thank you personally." Ji Tianxing revealed a gratified smile and whispered into Yun Yao's ear, "We'll be a family soon. Why are you still so polite?" Yun Yao's expression did not change, but her crystal-clear earlobes were covered with a layer of red. It was obvious that she was embarrassed. On the evening of the 3rd day, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao finally arrived at Cloud's Soul Palace. Thousands of feet high in the sky, the boundless sea of clouds was illuminated by the setting sun. The Cloud Spirit Palace stood in the middle of the sea of clouds. It was majestic and dignified. Under the setting sun, it emitted thousands of rays of light. This was Ji Tianxing's 3rd visit to Cloud Soul Palace. However, every time he saw the magnificent Cloud Spirit Palace, he would be shocked by its majestic aura. Not long after, the spirit crane landed on the square outside of Cloud Spirit Palace. The floor was paved with golden bricks. It reflected the sunlight as usual, and the golden light was dazzling. When the two of them landed on the square, the dozen or so disciples of the Yun family who were practicing their swordsmanship on the square immediately stopped and bowed respectfully to the two of them. "Greetings, miss." "Greetings, Lord Ji." The last time Ji Tianxing came to Cloud's Soul Palace, he was the genius of the Thearcha's son, the #1 genius of the human race, and the Tianxin territory lord. He was honorable and dazzling. The disciples of the Yun family basically remembered his name and appearance. They were very respectful and worshipped him. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly to the disciples. He walked side by side with Yun Yao across the square and toward the palace gate. The dozen or so young disciples all stared at the two of them as they walked up the stairs, until the two of them stepped onto the green jade steps and entered Cloud Soul Palace. The disciples were still discussing. Their eyes were filled with admiration and yearning. After Yun Yao led Ji Tianxing into Cloud Soul Palace, she arranged a small courtyard for him so that he could rest temporarily. When night fell, Yun Yao changed into an elegant and luxurious dress. Then, she went to find Ji Tianxing to attend the banquet together. Tonight's banquet was a simple family banquet. Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu had specially set up a banquet in the side hall to welcome Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao. Ji Tianxing was still wearing a white robe. Although his attire was simple, he exuded confidence and vigor. It was admirable. When the two of them entered the side hall, Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu, who were sitting on the main seats, immediately looked toward the entrance. Yun Yao was wearing an icy blue dress. She was like a fairy who had walked out of a world of ice and snow. She was cold and beautiful, and her aura was noble and holy. On the other hand, Ji Tianxing was handsome and handsome. He was wearing a white robe, which made him look even more handsome and elegant. He and Yun Yao walked hand in hand, and they really complemented each other. A talented man and a beautiful woman, a perfect match made in heaven. At that moment, not only did Yun Zhongqi reveal a gratified smile, but he even had the illusion that he was witnessing his daughter's wedding with Ji Tianxing. Even Bailey Ningsu, who had a neutral attitude before, was stunned by Yun Yao and Ji Tianxing's elegance. She suddenly felt that only when Yun Yao and Ji Tianxing were together, they had a natural sense of intimacy and perfection. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao walked to the middle of the hall and greeted Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu. Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu quickly smiled and nodded, indicating that the two of them should stop being so courteous. In addition to the four of them, there was another person in the hall. It was Yun Yao's cousin, Zhu Fifan. Zhu Fifan's parents died when he was young. He had been living with his aunt, Bailey Ningsu, in the Cloud Spirit Palace for more than 20 years. Bailey Ningsu treated him like her own son. She took care of him as if he was her own son. When Ji Tianxing came to the Cloud Spirit Palace last time, Zhu Fifan happened to be out on some business, so he didn't meet him. This was the first time they met. Bailey Ningsu introduced them to each other. Ji Tianxing and Zhu Fifan cupped their hands and greeted him. It could be said that they got to know each other. Zhu Fifan was dressed luxuriously. He had a kind face and was as gentle as jade. He was a gentleman with an elegant demeanor. His speech and actions were quite well-mannered. When he talked to Ji Tianxing, he also smiled. He was like a spring breeze and left a good impression on Ji Tianxing. After the two of them chatted for a while, Yun Zhongqi asked everyone to sit down. After a while, the family banquet began. The maids came in one after another. They brought all kinds of delicious dishes and several kinds of wine. Although there were only a dozen dishes in the banquet, all of them were the best in the world. While everyone was enjoying the delicious food and wine, they chatted from time to time. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Ji Tianxing could also feel that Yun Zhongqi was treating him with more and more importance. Even Bailey Ningsu's impression of him improved greatly. She seemed to be more amiable and close to him. After an hour, the banquet ended. Everyone was about to leave after eating and drinking. Bailey Ningsu left first with Yun Yao. The mother and daughter wanted to have a chat. Yun Zhongqi looked at Ji Tianxing and said with a kind face, "Tianxing, do you mind taking a walk with me?" Ji Tianxing knew that Yun Zhongqi must have something to say to him. So, he smiled and nodded. "How can I, Tianxing, refuse your invitation?" Chapter 735. Yun Zhongqi led Ji Tianxing out of the side hall and ascended to the second floor of the palace. The last time Ji Tianxing had come to Cloud Soul Palace, Yun Zhongqi had taken him to the Nebula Pagoda. The two of them had a secret discussion in the pagoda and decided on a plan to work together. What they discussed was confidential. Tonight, Yun Zhongqi had taken him to the second floor of the palace and stood in the hallway to admire the night scenery. From this, Ji Tianxing immediately guessed that what Yun Zhongqi was going to talk about wasn't anything confidential. The second floor of the palace was completely silent. The hallway was empty, and there was no one else besides the two of them. Yun Zhongqi stood in the hallway with his hands behind his back and calmly looked at the sea of clouds in front of him. Ji Tianxing stood beside him and looked at the sea of clouds in front of him, admiring the beautiful starry sky. The two of them were silent for a while before Yun Zhongqi finally opened his mouth and said in a serious tone, "Tianxing, I already know that you took the blood dissipation curse on Yao Yao's behalf. The blood dissipation curse was extremely vicious. Even if I did it myself, I wouldn't have been able to dispel it. For this matter, Uncle wants to thank you properly. Thank you for saving Yao Yao's life." Ji Tianxing shook his head and smiled. "Since Yao Yao and I love each other, this isn't just a verbal promise. I will hold her hand until we grow old and use all my strength to protect her. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I won't hesitate." Yun Zhongqi turned his head to look at him and said in a gratified tone, "If anyone else had said this, I definitely wouldn't have believed them. However, Tianxing, you've already done this, so how can I not believe you? Yao Yao is indeed a good judge of character. She didn't misjudge you. You are indeed worthy of being entrusted to her for the rest of her life. For a girl, to have someone protect her wholeheartedly and share life and death with her is the greatest blessing. In the future, I can entrust Yao Yao to you, so I can be completely at ease." Last time, when Yun Zhongqi had spoken to Ji Tianxing, he had always referred to himself as this lord. Tonight, he had changed his title to uncle. Ji Tianxing knew that this meant that Yun Zhongqi's attitude towards him had improved. Furthermore, Yun Zhongqi's words made it clear that he was treating him like a son-in-law. Ji Tianxing was gratified, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded to show that he understood. Yun Zhongqi continued, "It has been almost a month since the Duanmu clan's herb garden was destroyed. During this month, the central continent was in a state of turmoil. Heroes were vying for supremacy, and the situation was chaotic. Before this, who would have thought that the person who caused such a change in the world would be a newborn calf like you?" Yun Zhongqi's tone was somewhat rueful. A faint, playful smile hung on his resolute and dignified face. In fact, this was exactly what he was thinking. A month ago, he also couldn't believe that Ji Tianxing could do such a feat and cause such a huge commotion. But Ji Tianxing really did it. When Yun Zhongqi first saw Ji Tianxing today, he knew that Ji Tianxing's cultivation had improved again. Within a month, he had improved from the 5th level of the Sky Origin stage to the 6th level. That was godly speed. Yun Zhongqi was very surprised. He was even more satisfied with Ji Tianxing now. He knew that even the Emperor of the Imperial Palace couldn't have such a great talent. What more could he ask for when he had such a perfect son-in-law? Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked with a playful smile, "Uncle, how is the Duanmu clan doing?" A smug smile appeared on Yun Zhongqi's face as he uttered these words. "They are struggling at death's door. They are dying." Ji Tianxing immediately understood what he meant. He nodded and said, "That's great. In 10 days, Dr. Bailey's birthday banquet will be held. All the influential forces in the central continent will gather in the Cloud Spirit Palace. Uncle, you will be able to call for help. When that time comes, the Cloud Spirit Palace will not only destroy the Duanmu clan completely, but they will also be able to expand their power." Yun Zhongqi nodded and exchanged a glance with him. Both of them had a tacit understanding of each other. After that, Yun Zhongqi's smile disappeared. He said earnestly, "Tianxing, after what happened last time, the Duanmu Huang knows about your relationship with the Cloud Spirit Palace. From now on, you don't have to hide anything. You don't have to worry about the Duanmu clan's opinion. Also, the Duanmu Huang suffered a loss once. They won't do anything to you in the near future. Now, what I am most worried about is the Murong clan and the Demon clan. You must be careful." Ji Tianxing nodded and said seriously, "The Duanmu clan is about to be destroyed. As their ally, the Murong clan will definitely help. However, I don't know why, but the Murong clan seems to be impatient. They want to kill me. I can see this from Murong Lingfeng's recent reaction. He is no longer pretending like before." Yun Zhongqi nodded and said calmly, "Yao Yao has already told me about Murong Lingfeng kidnapping the heavenly consort. In my impression, Murong Lingfeng has always been a shrewd person. I didn't think that he would be so daring as to kidnap the heavenly consort. He really doesn't know what death is. If I'm not wrong, he must have received someone's orders. That's why he acted so impatiently. When he heard this, Ji Tianxing frowned and asked curiously, whose orders did Murong Lingfeng receive? Yun Zhongqi showed a playful expression and said in a low voice, naturally, it's the people behind the two clans. They are the real masterminds. A glint flashed in Ji Tianxing's eyes as he subconsciously said, I'm afraid that only a certain important figure in the imperial court can make the Duanmu clan and Murong clan form an alliance and command the two clans, right? Yun Zhongqi shook his head and said in a low voice, it can be big or small. Ji Tianxing immediately understood what he meant. Yun Zhongqi continued, recently, the situation in the central state has been chaotic. Not only are various forces fighting in the dark, but the remnants of the demon clan are also restless. Although you have outstanding talent and outstanding strength, you are not afraid of the Demon King's attacks. However, the Demon Clan is cruel and bloodthirsty. They have all kinds of despicable and vicious methods that are hard to defend against. The blood-dissipating curse is an example. Tianxing, I don't want to see you and Yao Yao get schemed against by the Demon Clan and be in mortal danger. Even if you can resolve one or two crises, you can't be so lucky every time. Ji Tianxing understood Yun Zhongqi's feelings. He nodded seriously and said, don't worry, uncle. I will be more careful in the future. Yun Zhongqi nodded and continued, there's one more thing that I want to remind you of. This time, Miracle Dr. Bailey has returned from the southern wasteland swamp. He is about to celebrate his 300th birthday. The old man told me that he had been traveling the continent for the first half of his life. He had almost traveled the entire Tianxian continent. Now that he has returned, he wants to settle down and stop traveling the world. However, he has never taken in a disciple. He has never passed down the medical knowledge that he had spent his entire life researching. Therefore, the old man wants to use this birthday celebration as an opportunity to pick a talented disciple to pass down his legacy. As the saying goes, keep the goodies within the family. Tianxing, you are the #1 genius of our clan. You have excellent character and talent. Of course, you are the best choice. Chapter 736. Ji Tianxing had thought that the reason he was staying in Cloud Soul Palace was to get closer to the Yun family. As for Divine Dr. Bailey's 300th birthday, he was only here to perform the etiquette of a junior. He had never thought that Miracle Dr. Bailey would take this opportunity to take him in as a disciple and pass on his skills to him. Moreover, Yun Zhongqi's words implied that he wanted Chen Xiaobei to seize the opportunity to become Miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple. Ji Tianxing pondered for a moment, then cupped his fists at Yun Zhongqi and said, thank you for helping me fight for this opportunity, uncle. Miracle Dr. Bailey is famous all over the world. It would be my honor to become his disciple. I will do my best to fight for it. However, it depends on fate. I need Miracle Dr. Bailey's approval. I can't force it. Yun Zhongqi could immediately tell that Ji Tianxing was rather indifferent towards this matter. He wasn't excited or expectant at all. He could fight for it or not. Therefore, he advised him again. Tianxing, Miracle Dr. Bailey is not only one of the top 3 miracle doctors in the continent, but he is also a soul-tempering stage powerhouse. If you can become his disciple, you will have a higher status and reputation. It will also bring unimaginable benefits to you, Yao Yao, and Cloud Soul Palace. Anyway, I hope you can seize the opportunity. Yun Zhongqi was the head of the Yun family and a soul-tempering stage powerhouse. His status was extraordinary. The fact that he could persuade Ji Tianxing so sincerely showed that he really valued Ji Tianxing. He had high hopes for him. Moreover, Ji Tianxing had a feeling that there was more to it than met the eye. It was just that Yun Zhongqi did not want to say it out loud. Therefore, Chen Xiaobei did not decline and nodded in agreement. After the two of them finished talking about business, they chatted for a while and then left together. Not long after the two of them left, light footsteps could be heard coming from a room at the end of the corridor. A handsome young man in a long brocade robe and holding a purple jade fan opened the door and walked out. This man was Yun Yao's cousin, the gentle and elegant gentleman, the poison doctor Zhu Fifan. However, at this moment, his expression was somewhat unsightly. His face was ice-cold, and his eyes surged with traces of hatred and coldness. He gripped the fan with both hands so tightly that his knuckles turned white. It was obvious that he was furious. I guessed it long ago. Uncle and aunt invited Ji Tianxing to stay in Cloud's spirit palace for a while. It's definitely not that simple. Who would have thought that when grandfather wanted to pass on his legacy, instead of choosing from his descendants, he would use the birthday banquet as an opportunity to choose a disciple? What's worse is that Ji Tianxing hasn't married my cousin yet, but my uncle already treats him as his son-in-law and wants him to inherit my grandfather's legacy. Apparently, Zhu Fifan had already guessed that Yun Zhongqi was going to discuss something important with Ji Tianxing, so he hid in the room and eavesdropped on their conversation. He didn't care about the Murong family, the Duanmu family, or the Demon Clan. However, when it came to the legacy of his grandfather, Miracle Dr. Bailey, he was extremely concerned and even angry. After all, he had inherited the wishes of his deceased mother. He had been studying medicine and alchemy since he was young, and his lifelong goal was to become a miracle doctor. In the past 20 years in Cloud Spirit Palace, he had been following Bailey Ningsu and learning medicine with all his might. He was thirsty for knowledge. The thing that he coveted the most, the thing that he wanted even in his dreams, was divine Dr. Bailey's inheritance. Now, Ji Tianxing had suddenly appeared. With the support and encouragement of his uncle, Yun Zhongqi, he was going to snatch away the treasure that he coveted the most. How could he tolerate this? Ji Tianxing is just an outsider. He hasn't even entered Cloud Spirit Palace yet, but he wants to snatch my grandfather's legacy. I will never allow that. However, I have to find out what Aunt Yun wants to do first. Thinking of this, Zhu Fifan waved the fan in his hand and went downstairs. After he left the main hall, he went to Bailey Ningsu's residence calmly. 15 minutes later, Zhu Fifan entered Thousand Cloud Palace. When he saw Bailey Ningsu had just sent Yun Yao away. Zhu Fifan reported outside the door. After getting Bailey Ningsu's permission, he pushed the door open and entered. Fifan greets Aunt Yun. Zhu Fifan walked into the room, came to the round wooden table, and bowed to Bailey Ningsu. Bailey Ningsu sat at the table in a dignified manner. Her slender hand was holding a white jade teacup, and she was slowly sipping tea. She put down the teacup and looked at Zhu Fifan with a gentle smile on her face. She asked, "Fifan, it's already so late. Why are you looking for Aunt Yun?" Zhu Fifan looked hesitant, as if he wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Bailey Ningsu raised her eyebrows and asked in confusion, "Fifan, do you have something to tell Aunt Yun? You were brought up by Aunt Yun. What is there that you can't tell Aunt Yun? Just say it. Aunt Yun won't blame you." Hearing this, Zhu Fifan's heart calmed down. He lowered his voice and said, "Aunt Yun, after the banquet, I went for a walk outside the palace and accidentally heard the conversation between Ji Tianxing and Uncle. I heard them talking about Grandpa accepting a disciple and inheriting his legacy. I don't know where Ji Tianxing got the news, but he actually pestered Uncle and asked him to plead with Grandpa for him. He actually wants to become Grandpa's last disciple and study Grandpa's unique medical skills." Zhu Fifan's tone was a bit resentful. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with this. After hearing this, Bailey Ningsu immediately frowned and said in a deep voice, "Fifan, you actually eavesdropped on the conversation between Ji Tianxing and your uncle? How can you be so unruly?" Zhu Fifan hurriedly explained, "Aunt Yun, I didn't mean to eavesdrop. They were standing on the eaves of the corridor and I accidentally heard it. Yun, Grandpa is the top divine doctor in the continent. What kind of miraculous skills have he learned in his life? Even if Grandpa wants to inherit his legacy, he should pass it on to you or Yao Yao. How can he choose an outsider to be his disciple? Moreover, Ji Tianxing is a commoner from a small country in the south. How can he deliberately get close to cousin Yao Yao and even want to enter Cloud's soul palace? Aunt Yun, I think that Ji Tianxing is not a good person. He must have other motives for getting close to cousin Yao Yao. However, cousin Yao Yao is kind and pure. She didn't even know that she was deceived by that kid. This kid is too hateful. He even wants to get his hands on Grandpa's legacy. In order to achieve his goal, Zhu Fifan did not hesitate to distort the truth and slander Ji Tianxing. But before he could finish, Bailey Ningsu waved her hand and interrupted him. "Shut up." Zhu Fifan immediately shut up and looked at Bailey Ningsu with an unwilling face. Bailey Ningsu looked at him and said in a somewhat reproachful tone, "Fifan, are you blaming your grandpa for being unreasonable?" Fifan wouldn't dare. Zhu Fifan hurriedly lowered his head and admitted his mistake. Bailey Ningsu calmly said, "Fifan, although Ji Tianxing's status is not enough to become the son-in-law of Cloud Soul Palace, he has a bright future and a good character. Yao Yao's eyes are like torches. How can the person she wants to entrust her life to be a mediocre person? You don't know Ji Tianxing well. Don't criticize him in the future. Don't make Yao Yao unhappy. As for your grandpa's legacy, he has his own plans. It's not up to us to criticize him." But Zhu Fifan was unwilling and wanted to say something more. Bailey Ningsu waved her hand and said in a dignified tone, "No need to say anything more. I know what I'm doing. You can leave." Zhu Fifan immediately shut up and did not say anything else. He pursed his lips unwillingly and suppressed the anger in his heart. "Aunt Yun, rest early. Fifan will leave now." He bowed to Bailey Ningsu and hurriedly left the room, turning to leave. However, when he walked out of the Thousand Cloud Palace, his face turned cold. He murmured, "In the past, Aunt Yun did not look Ji Tianxing in the eye, but now she's speaking up for him." Chapter 737. For the next 2 days, Ji Tianxing rested peacefully in Cloud Soul Palace. During this period, Yun Yao took him around Cloud Soul Palace a few times, so he had a better understanding of the layout of Cloud Soul Palace. Furthermore, many of the younger generation of the Yun family had come to visit Ji Tianxing. They were extremely polite and respectful to him. After 2 days, the Yun family became more familiar with him and had a good impression of him. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Everyone in the Yun family seemed to have accepted Ji Tianxing and nothing unpleasant happened. On the morning of the 3rd day, Cloud Soul Palace was shrouded in mist and the sun was about to rise. After Yun Yao had breakfast, she prepared to go to Ji Tianxing's residence. As soon as she walked out of the palace, she met Zhu Fifan, who was taking a stroll on the road outside the palace. When Zhu Fifan saw Yun Yao, he stopped and greeted her with a smile. "Cousin Yao Yao, good morning." Yun Yao nodded and said calmly, "Good morning, cousin." She greeted Zhu Fifan and was about to walk past him to find Ji Tianxing. However, Zhu Fifan had no intention of leaving. He walked side by side with her and started to chat. "Yao Yao, young Master Ji has been in Cloud Soul Palace for 2 days. He is a guest from afar. You should accompany him." Yun Yao nodded again and said calmly, "Yes, I know." She was as cold as usual. Her words were short and her tone and expression were very calm. Zhu Fifan knew her well and did not feel awkward. He continued, "I heard that young Master Ji almost lost his life to save you. Although he escaped from danger, it was inevitable that his vitality would be greatly damaged. Since he has come to Cloud Soul Palace, we should treat him well. At least we should do our best to help him recover as soon as possible. Yao Yao, do you still remember that there is a spirit spring in the back mountain of Cloud Soul Palace? The effect of the spirit spring is extraordinary. If you cultivate in the spring, it can cleanse your body and heal your soul. It is very beneficial to martial artists. Yao Yao, you can bring young Master Ji to the spirit spring to recuperate. I'm sure he'll be able to recover quickly." Upon hearing Zhu Fifan's words, Yun Yao stared blankly for a moment. Then, an expectant look appeared on her face as she nodded and said, I remember now. There is indeed a spiritual spring in the back mountain. When I was young, I went to the spirit spring once. Soaking in the spirit spring, I quickly recovered from my injuries." Yun Yao cupped her hands and bowed to Zhu Fifan. "Thank you for your reminder, cousin. I'll take Tianxing to the spiritual spring now." Zhu Fifan nodded with a smile and quickly said, "Yao Yao, you haven't come back for many years, so you probably don't remember the location of the spiritual spring, right? Over the years, many caves and gardens have been opened up in the back mountain. I'm afraid you won't be able to find the place if you go alone. Let me take you there. After saying that, Zhu Fifan was about to take Yun Yao to the spiritual spring at the back of the mountain. Yun Yao naturally didn't refuse. She nodded and agreed. After all, when she took Ji Tianxing back to Cloud Spirit Palace for the first time, it was Zhu Fifan who advised her to use the Nirvana crystal to save Ji Tianxing's life. After that incident, she not only trusted Zhu Fifan, but also felt grateful to him. Now, Zhu Fifan took the initiative to give her an idea to heal Ji Tianxing's injuries. Of course, she wouldn't think too much about it. Thank you, cousin. Yun Yao bowed and thanked Zhu Fifan. Then she ordered the maid behind Zhu Fifan, Jiao, go to Hefeng Garden now and report to young Master Ji. Take him to the spiritual spring in the back mountain. Jiao was Zhu Fifan's personal maid. She had a pretty face and a slim figure. She had the demure temperament of a pretty girl from a humble family. She grew up in Cloud Spirit Palace since she was a child. She was very well behaved and clever, and she was very loyal to the Yun family. When she heard Yun Yao's order, she quickly bowed and said respectfully, "Yes, young mistress." Then, Zhu Fifan took Yun Yao to the back of the mountain. Jiao, the maid, rushed to Hefeng Garden to inform Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing was meditating in his room. He was consolidating his martial arts foundation and cultivating his skills. Early in the morning in Cloud Spirit Palace, it was the time of the day when the spiritual energy was the densest. It was very helpful for cultivation. However, at this moment, a clear and pleasant female voice sounded in the courtyard outside the door. "Young Master Ji, Maid Jiao wants to see you." This voice broke the tranquility of Hefeng Garden, causing Ji Tianxing to stop circulating and open his eyes. "Come in," he replied calmly. Then, the door was pushed open. A slender maid in a long brocade dress walked into the room with light steps. She was Maid Jiao. She walked into the room and bowed to Ji Tianxing. Then, she said respectfully, "Young Master Ji, young mistress asked me to send a message to inform you. Young mistress is waiting for you at the spirit spring in the back of the mountain. She asked me to take you there now." Hearing Jiao's words, Ji Tianxing frowned slightly. A touch of doubt flashed in his eyes. "Yao Yao asked me to go to the spirit spring in the back of the mountain to find her? Do you know why young mistress is looking for me?" Jiao showed an obedient and pure smile. Then, she said in a clear voice, "Although I don't know the specific reason, I can see that young mistress is thinking of you." "Well then take me there." Ji Tianxing nodded in response. Then, he got up and walked out of the room. Then, Jiao followed him out of Hefeng Garden and led him to the back of the mountain. The area of Cloud Soul Palace was too large. The terrain was too broad. From Hefeng Garden to the back of the mountain, they had to pass through half of Cloud Soul Palace. It was at least a few dozen miles away. After an hour, Ji Tianxing and Jiao entered the back of the mountain. They walked on a bluestone road in the forest. The bluestone road was 2 meters wide. Lush trees grew on the side of the road. There were also all kinds of spiritual flowers and plants. When Jiao brought Ji Tianxing to a black stone tablet that was 10 meters tall, she stopped in front of it. "Young Master Ji, this is as far as I can take you. Ahead is a forbidden area. As servants, we can't go in." Jiao bowed to Ji Tianxing and explained apologetically, "Continue forward. When you reach the end of the bluestone road, turn right and you'll find the spirit spring." Hearing Jiao's words, Ji Tianxing raised his head and looked at the black stone tablet on the side of the road. He saw that the stone tablet was indeed engraved with the words, "Back of the mountain forbidden area. No trespassers." Ji Tianxing knew that the rules of the aristocratic families were strict and could not be violated. He waved his hand and motioned for Jiao to leave. After Jiao turned and left, he stepped on the bluestone road and continued to walk forward. After more than 1,000 steps, the bluestone road came to an end. It divided into 2 roads, one left and one right. Both roads were paved with black stone slabs. The roads were winding and there was a lush forest beside them. Ji Tianxing looked around and stepped on the black stone path on the right. He walked into the depths of the forest. When his figure disappeared at the end of the path, a handsome young man came out from behind a tall stone statue at the fork. This man was Zhu Fifan. He held a purple jade folding fan in his hand and looked at the black stone path on the right. A cold smile flashed in his eyes. Chapter 738. Zhu Fifan stood at the crossroads and looked at the black stone path on the right with a cold smile. Apparently, the black stone path on the right was not the way to the spiritual spring. Zhu Fifan gently waved the purple jade folding fan, revealing a confident look. The magic dust formation is the top Tianyuan formation. Although it is not powerful in killing, it is a powerful trap formation. Even a cultivator at the 7th or 8th level of the Sky Origin stage will be trapped in the magic dust formation for 1 or 2 months, or even half a year. Zhu Fifan was so sure because something like this had happened before. A few years ago, a cultivator at the 8th level of the Sky Origin stage accidentally broke into the magic dust formation and was trapped for 1 month before he was rescued. Thinking of this, Zhu Fifan smiled coldly and murmured, "Humph. Ji Tianxing won't die, but he will be trapped in the formation for more than half a month. By then, Grandpa's birthday banquet will be over and the final disciple will be chosen. He will have nothing to do with it. Grandpa's medical skills are mine. I won't allow anyone to touch it." Ji Tianxing walked along the black stone path and soon entered the deep mountain. The trees on both sides of the path were getting thicker and thicker. There were several black stone tablets on both sides of the path. Every stone tablet was modeled with ancient symbols and lines, which gave out a mysterious and simple atmosphere. Ji Tianxing could feel that the spiritual qi was getting thicker and thicker as he walked to the end of the path. There were wisps of spiritual fog in the air. He instinctively thought that it had something to do with the spiritual spring. However, when he stepped on an inconspicuous black stone slab, there was a cracking sound under his feet. That clear and crisp sound was like the sound of a mirror being stepped on. Ji Tianxing immediately stopped and lowered his head to look at his feet with a puzzled expression. The square black stone slab under his feet was still intact. There was not even a crack on it. Where did the cracking sound come from? Ji Tianxing frowned. He felt that something was wrong. When he raised his head and looked around, he found that the scenery around him had changed. In just a short moment, the dense woods and towering trees had all disappeared. Ji Tianxing's surroundings turned into a boundless desert. The flat and desolate land was covered with fist-sized sharp gravel and dark brown soil. As far as the eye could see, the earth was pitch black, and there was not a trace of green in sight. It was filled with a desolate aura. Large dark clouds were surging in the sky. The light was dim, which made people feel depressed. A gust of wind whistled through the air, bringing with it a cold air that was as sharp as a sword. It was unbearable. Ji Tianxing stood on the cold and desolate Gobi Desert. He looked around and frowned with a cold expression. Of course, he understood that although the world formed by the formation was real, it was also a disguise. The essence of the formation was actually the power of heaven and earth. Ji Tianxing looked around with a sharp gaze. The scene he saw with his Dharma eye immediately changed. His golden eyes saw through the disguise of the desert world and clearly saw the network and structure of the formation. So it's a supreme-grade heaven essence formation. Its main attribute is earth. He uses 6 different heaven essence formations to set it up. With Ji Tianxing's attainments in the formation Dao, he could break almost 90% of the heaven essence formations. However, supreme-grade heaven essence formations were very rare. He had only broken it once. Fortunately, he had just mastered the pure heart demon subduing art not long ago. With the help of the pure heart Dharma eye, it became easier for him to break the formation. In the past, he would have to spend 7 to 8 days to break this supreme-grade heaven essence formation. But now, with the help of the pure heart Dharma eye, he was confident that he could break it in 2 days. The pure heart demon subduing art was a technique that Ji Tianxing had inherited from the deepest part of his soul. It was incomparably marvelous and its grade was unknown. As he used the pure heart Dharma eye to break the formation, he had a deeper understanding of the power of this technique. It was truly rare in the world. He was even more certain that the grade of the pure heart demon subduing art had not only surpassed the spirit level, it was highly possible that it was a primordial spirit-level technique. According to the martial arts knowledge of the Tian Shenland, only elite warriors of the spirit refinement realm could forge spirit-level treasures, cultivate and perform spirit-level techniques. However, the pure heart demon subduing art was too marvelous. Ji Tianxing himself was also very special. He could perform a primordial spirit-level technique with the strength of the heaven essence realm. Chapter 739. Inside the illusion dust formation, in the boundless desert world. Ji Tianxing stood high in the sky, his clothes fluttering in the wind. He constantly struck out with his palms, injecting true essence into the formation. His golden eyes flickered with golden light, releasing a mysterious spell power as he stared at the dark sky. As he used the formation technique, his palms struck out with true essence, breaking a hole in the sky. Although it was only a palm-sized hole, it was as black as ink, like an extremely small black hole. However, as Ji Tianxing continued to crack the formation, the hole also slowly expanded. Not only did he have to crack the illusion dust formation and tear a hole in the sky, but he also had to resist the formation's recovery power. After all, after a hole was broken in the formation, it would automatically accumulate power to repair itself. Fortunately, Ji Tianxing's speed of cracking the formation was faster than the formation's recovery speed. Therefore, the black hole was slowly expanding and growing. Unknowingly, 12 hours had passed. The palm-sized black hole had already expanded to the size of a wash basin. However, this was not enough. Ji Tianxing did not stop. He continued to strike with his palms, releasing true essence to crack the formation. Soon an entire day passed. The black hole continued to expand. It was already half a meter wide, which was the size of a large water tank. At this time, Ji Tianxing had been continuously casting spells for 24 hours. He had already used 40% of his true essence, and his strength was somewhat weak. He finally stopped casting spells. His eyes burned as he looked up at the black hole. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. It's finally done. The effects of the pure heart Dharma eye are indeed miraculous. It actually allowed me to crack the supreme grade heavenly essence formation in one day. This was something that Ji Tianxing did not expect. The effects of the pure heart Dharma eye were more powerful than he had imagined. He did not waste any more time. Without hesitation, he flew high into the sky and entered the black hole in a flash. Swoosh! In the next instant, he passed through the black hole and escaped the desert world. He finally returned to the mountain behind Cloud's Soul Palace. A light flashed in front of his eyes, and his vision became bright and clear. When he focused his eyes, he saw that he was standing on a black stone path. On his left and right were dense forests. Above his head was the blue sky, and the warm sunlight shone down on his body. Without a doubt, Ji Tianxing had successfully passed through the great fantasy dust formation and returned to the black stone path at the back of the mountain. He raised his head and looked ahead. 100 steps away was the end of the path. There was a garden surrounded by gray-white stone pillars, and the garden was filled with lush spirit herbs and flowers. The spiritual grass was dark green and the spiritual flowers were colorful, emitting a refreshing fragrance. On the spirit trees, fragrant spirit fruits could be seen. Clearly, it was a medicinal garden. Ji Tianxing sized up the herb garden a few times, then stepped over the black stone path and walked to the edge of the herb garden. When he got closer, he discovered that the grayish-white stone pillars surrounding the herb garden also had other mysteries and had extraordinary effects. The stone pillars were engraved with array patterns that contained vast and mighty power. It could gather the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the entire back mountain to form a powerful array. The invisible array light shield was like an inverted bowl that enveloped the entire herb garden. This large array could not only protect the herb garden, but it could also provide rich spiritual chi for the spirit herbs and flowers in the garden, causing them to grow healthily. Ji Tianxing observed for a moment, then used his pure heart Dharma eye to crack the defensive array of the herb garden. This large array was also a supreme grade heavenly essence array. In terms of setting up the array and structure, it was very similar to the great fantasy dust formation. Ji Tianxing knew at a glance that the two large arrays were created by the same person. With the experience of cracking the Great Fantasy Dust Formation, he quickly cracked the defensive array of the herb garden. For hours later, he tore a gap in the large array and entered the herb garden through the gap. Ji Tianxing had learned the 1,000 medicine collection in the Sky Pillar sect and could identify thousands of medicinal herbs. However, as he strolled in the herb garden, he discovered that the medicinal herbs in this herb garden were all rare and precious spirit herbs. At least 70% to 80% of the medicinal herbs and flowers were top-notch spirit herbs that he could not identify. Unknowingly, he walked to the middle of the herb garden and saw a huge ancient tree standing in front of him. The towering tree was 100 meters tall, and its trunk was as thick as a pillar that supported the sky. Its branches and leaves were lush like a large umbrella that covered the sky, covering a radius of 1,000 meters. The towering ancient tree contained extremely vigorous power and emitted incomparably rich green with spiritual qi. Ji Tianxing could see that this ancient tree was the core of the herb garden. It was the most powerful and precious medicinal tree in the garden. In the branches and leaves of the ancient tree, there were numerous fruits. They were all densely packed with green spiritual fruits. Each spiritual fruit was as big as an apple. They were sparkling and translucent, emitting a fragrant fruity fragrance that made people unconsciously swallow their saliva. It just so happened that Ji Tianxing had spent more than half of his strength to crack two large arrays in a row. His vital essence was depleted, and his body was exhausted. He did not think too much about it. He reached out and plucked two spiritual fruits from the tree and put them into his mouth to chew. After all, he cultivated Tianxing's 5 extreme secret techniques and controlled the power of green wood. Of course, he could see that there was no problem with these spiritual fruits, and they were quite effective. The spiritual fruits were crisp and sweet. They turned into a cool stream of sweet water that flowed down Ji Tianxing's throat into his stomach. Suddenly, he only felt that there was rolling vital qi in his body, and his pores were opened. It was an indescribable comfort and enjoyment. As expected of a top spiritual tree, the spiritual fruits it bears are so delicious. 2 more, Ji Tianxing praised in his heart. After eating 2 spiritual fruits, he could not help but pluck 2 more. But at this moment, the towering ancient tree, which was motionless, suddenly moved. The branches, leaves, and trunks around Ji Tianxing actually came to life. They were like arms that instantly wrapped around Ji Tianxing. Swish, swish, swish. In the blink of an eye, dozens of dark green branches as thick as arms wrapped around him and tied him up like a dumpling. Ji Tianxing frowned immediately and his eyes became fierce. He looked up at the crown of the tree and found that the dense branches and leaves of the towering ancient tree were shrinking rapidly. The spiritual fruits on the treetops were all hidden. The branches turned into vines and entangled him like tentacles. Moreover, rows of sharp spikes emerged from the branches that wrapped around him, trying to pierce through his clothes and into his flesh. Ji Tianxing hurriedly tried to break the branches and vines that entangled him. However, he found that the branches of the ancient tree were thousands of times tougher than fine iron. He could not break them. This spiritual tree has been growing for so many years that it has developed intelligence and evolved into a tree demon. It is a top tree demon of the Tianyuan realm. As this thought flashed through Ji Tianxing's mind, he urged his majestic true essence to form a protective shield around his body to resist the pressure of the branches. However, the boundless true essence gushed out of his body, but before it could form a shield, it was swallowed and absorbed by the dozens of branches. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing immediately understood. Chapter 740. In a short span of 100 breaths, there were hundreds of thick branches that completely wrapped Ji Tianxing. Countless branches intertwined, forming a dark green cocoon that trapped him inside. No matter how he struggled, he could not break free from the branches and could not escape from the cocoon formed by the branches. Fortunately, he had already mastered the ultimate sword body, and his physical defense had reached the extreme. His skin looked crystal clear, but it was actually thousands of times harder than steel. No matter how hard those branches and vines squeezed, they could not break his skin or injure his bones. No matter how sharp the thorns on the branches were, they could not pierce through his skin. He was trapped in the cocoon for 7 minutes and was still unharmed. Soon, Ji Tianxing calmed down and thought of a way. He used the ultimate skill of the Wood Emperor umbrella and released a majestic green wood power from his body, wanting to assimilate the tree branches and break free from the cocoon. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. His body lit up with a rich green light that spread out in all directions. However, the tree branches greedily devoured the green wood spirit light, and in the blink of an eye, the green light was completely devoured. This scene made Ji Tianxing speechless. He thought to himself, "Damn it! This method actually doesn't work. Even if I release all my cultivation, it's not enough to fill the gaps between this tree demon's teeth." At this moment, a strange voice was transmitted through the branches to Ji Tianxing's ears. Little bug, stop struggling and give up resisting. Obediently become this king's food." This voice sounded like a young man's voice, but the tone was very strange and the accent was very bad. Ji Tianxing immediately understood that this was the tree demon's voice. "You're just a lowly tree demon, but you dare to be so arrogant. Want to devour me as nourishment? You're not qualified." Ji Tianxing snorted disdainfully, a sharp cold light surging in his eyes. That tree demon was instantly enraged and sneered with a sharp voice. "You puny reptile, how dare you say that this king is lowly? This king is the Jade Green Demon King who occupies hundreds of miles of mountains and rivers in the Great Swamp. How dare you be so presumptuous? This king will eat you right now and show you how powerful this king is." Jade Green Demon King was a tree demon transformed from a 1,000-year-old tree. It wasn't a ferocious beast. Its intelligence was developed later and its growth was very slow. Thus, its intelligence wasn't high. It was enraged by Ji Tianxing and immediately released a majestic green light from its branches, trying to strangle Ji Tianxing. More than 300 cyan light pillars were like sharp knives, crisscrossing and crushing Ji Tianxing. The pressure on Ji Tianxing suddenly increased. His skin was as red as blood, and his body was crushed and deformed. His bones and joints also made a kacha-kacha sound. Jade Green Demon King's furious attack had put him in danger, threatening his life. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing stretched out his right palm without hesitation and used his trump card. "You want to devour me? I want to see who will devour who." Ji Tianxing shouted coldly and immediately released the black hole in his palm. Swoosh! The black hole in his palm immediately expanded to the size of a bowl. Like a whirlpool, it released a terrifying devouring power. The hundreds of cyan light pillars released by Jade Green Demon King were instantly pulled by the devouring power and entered the black hole uncontrollably. In just a few breaths, more than 300 cyan light pillars were all devoured by the black hole. The majestic green wood energy flowed into Kenshin's tomb through the black hole and immediately replenished the heavenly sword steel with a huge amount of spiritual qi. Ji Tianxing and the heavenly sword steel equally divided the green wood spiritual qi and obtained a huge amount of spiritual qi, which was quickly converted into vital essence. His vital essence was immediately replenished. In just a few breaths, he had recovered 10% of his strength. Not bad, not bad. Although this tree demon is stupid, your energy is extremely pure. Just nice to help me recover my vital essence. Ji Tianxing sneered with satisfaction. His eyes revealed a mocking sneer. He continued to activate the black hole in his palm and madly devoured Jade Green Demon King's green wood energy. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of branches and vines were also devoured. But how can this be? What the hell is that? Jade Green Demon King was startled and let out a terrified shriek. Its lush branches and vines quickly retreated and fled back into the canopy in a panic. Ji Tianxing immediately regained his freedom as the branches around him all retreated. Swoosh! His figure flashed and flew 100 meters away. He caught up with a cluster of dark green vines and waved his right palm to release the black hole and quickly devoured the green wood energy. In the blink of an eye, the green wood energy in the hundreds of vines was completely devoured. The vines immediately withered and cracked. They no longer had any spiritual qi and were like dry firewood. Ji Tianxing, on the other hand, was replenished with a huge amount of spiritual qi. He recovered another 10% of his strength and became even stronger. He was also in a better mood. Jade Green Demon King saw the power of the black hole and panicked. It hurriedly sent a telepathic message. "Kid, don't push your luck. This is my territory. You've committed a grave crime by trespassing here. As long as you leave now, I won't hold it against you and can spare you." Before Jade Green Demon King could finish, Ji Tianxing interrupted it with a cold smile. "Ha, you want to spare my life? Sorry, but I don't want to spare you." Ji Tianxing had tasted the benefits, so he naturally wouldn't let Jade Green Demon King go. He felt that the speed of devouring the branches was too slow, so he went into the lush canopy and stood on a tree trunk as thick as a water tank. He released the black hole from his right palm and stuck close to the thick tree trunk. It frantically devoured the green wood energy in the ancient tree. Instantly, the green wood energy in the ancient tree turned into a majestic green wood torrent. It surged into the black hole and was transported into Kenshin's tomb. Ji Tianxing continued to absorb the massive amount of spiritual qi. His true essence quickly recovered to its peak state and continued to surge. Jade Green Demon King was shocked and furious. It immediately went crazy. It roared and cursed angrily. It waved its thick branches and vines, attacking Ji Tianxing with all its might. Ji Tianxing took out the Zone Lord's golden seal and used the seal of mountains and rivers to protect himself. He ignored Jade Green Demon King's attacks and focused on devouring the green wood energy. No matter how ferocious Jade Green's attacks were, even when thousands of branches whipped at the seal of mountains and rivers, they couldn't harm Ji Tianxing at all. The green wood energy it had accumulated over 1,000 years was quickly draining away. In a short 15 minutes, Ji Tianxing had devoured half of Jade Green Demon King's cultivation. His cultivation had reached its peak, and his strength was rapidly increasing. The heavenly sword steel in Kenshin's tomb was also filled with spiritual qi. The burial of heaven was also rapidly recovering and was about to awaken. But Jade Green Demon King's outcome was tragic and pitiful. The towering ancient tree, which was originally lush with leaves and flickering with green light, was now dispirited and lifeless, withering and withering. Hundreds of thousands of branches withered and fell to the ground. Half of the tree's leaves turned yellow and fell to the ground, forming a thick layer of fallen leaves. Chapter 741. The Jade Green Demon King was filled with remorse. If it had known that Ji Tianxing had such a mysterious and terrifying method, it would have pretended to be a tree without intelligence. It even wanted to devour him as nourishment. Now it had gone for wool and come home shorn. Its hundreds of years of cultivation had been devoured by the other party instead. The entire tree had withered and withered, with countless withered branches and leaves falling from it. However, the mysterious black hole's power was extremely terrifying. It shrouded its body, making it unable to struggle or resist. The Jade Green Demon King cursed for a while. Seeing that Ji Tianxing had no intention of stopping, it begged bitterly. "Young hero, I am just an old green maple tree. After thousands of years of nurturing by the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, I have today's cultivation. I beg you to be merciful." Ji Tianxing remained silent. He focused on activating the black hole in his palm, madly devouring the ancient green maple tree's power. The vast and mighty greenwood power caused the heaven-reaching sword steel in Kenshin's tomb to be surrounded by spiritual qi. The burial of heaven also recovered its vitality and gradually awakened. Ji Tianxing's strength continued to increase. The vast greenwood power accumulated in his body was actually integrated into his limbs, bones, marrow, and flesh. His ultimate sword physique had a slight change. It was actually tempered by the greenwood power to become even stronger, and its vitality became even more boundless. He sensed that his body was actually gradually transforming into the greenwood spiritual body. The greenwood spiritual body was a rare heaven-level physique. It had all sorts of miraculous effects. Ordinary martial artists with this physique were considered top geniuses. They would definitely be able to cultivate to the heaven origin realm. This discovery made Ji Tianxing excited and full of anticipation. The Jade Green Demon King became more and more indignant and desperate. It cried and begged, "Big brother! My lord! I beg you, you have already devoured my power for more than 500 years. Spare my old life." Ji Tianxing ignored it and continued to use the black hole to devour its pure power. He wanted to use this opportunity to refine the green wood's spiritual body. However, at this moment, a tall and sturdy figure suddenly flew out from the depths of the herb garden. That figure was a white-haired old man in a green robe. His complexion was rosy, and his spirit was hale and hearty. His entire body gave off the aura of an extraordinary expert. He flew to the top of the ancient green maple tree, and after seeing the situation clearly, his expression changed and he shouted anxiously, "Stop! Stop!" Ji Tianxing was immediately awakened by this voice. He raised his head and glanced at the green-robed elder in the sky. "No, I'm so close to achieving the azure wood spiritual body." As this thought flashed through his mind, he turned a deaf ear to the green-robed elder's words. He continued to use the black hole in his palm to devour the ancient tree's greenwood power. When the green-robed old man saw that the towering ancient tree had withered and its leaves had turned yellow, his heart ached and his mouth twitched. He revealed an extremely anxious expression. "Brat, stop it. If you don't stop, this old man won't be polite anymore." The green-robed elder glared fiercely at Ji Tianxing and shouted angrily with a dignified voice. Ji Tianxing raised his head and looked at him. He asked expressionlessly, "Senior, who are you? Why are you interfering in my feud with this tree demon?" The green-robed elder frowned and said in a dignified tone, "This old man is the guardian of this herb garden. Brat, what feud do you have with the Jade Green Demon King? Its roots have been set up with a restriction, so it can only stay in the herb garden and can't move. You must have barged into the herb garden without permission, so you were attacked by the Jade Green Demon King. You brat, not only did you barge into the herb garden, but you also injured this old man's ancient green maple tree. How should you be punished?" Hearing the green-robed elder's words, Ji Tianxing was naturally unconvinced. He retorted, "Senior, you're slandering me. I only barged into this herb garden by accident. This tree demon was too cruel and wanted to devour me as nourishment. It wanted to take my life. Can't I resist?" The green-robed elder was at a loss for words after being refuted, but he still shouted angrily, "Who are you? Why did you barge into the herb garden? Stop what you're doing and let the ancient green maple tree go. Otherwise, this old man won't go easy on you." Ji Tianxing snorted and said unhappily, "This tree demon almost killed me. How can I forgive it so easily? Unless you make it apologize to me, I won't agree." While Ji Tianxing was arguing with the green-robed elder, the black hole in his right palm was not idle. It was madly devouring the Jade Green Demon King's power. The green-robed elder could not stand it anymore. He no longer wasted his breath on him and attacked with a low shout. "Brat, you're being unreasonable. This old man can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. Accept your punishment." The moment he said that, the green-robed elder raised his right hand and waved his sleeve. A huge five-colored palm that covered the sky slammed down from the sky. Swoosh! The five-colored palm with a radius of 10 meters was like a mountain crashing down. It instantly slammed down on Ji Tianxing's head. The air in all directions was suddenly squeezed and the space seemed to be sealed. The immense pressure caused Ji Tianxing's expression to change. Deep fear appeared in his eyes. He could immediately determine that the green-robed elder was either a half-step soul refinement realm cultivator or a soul refinement realm cultivator. At this critical moment, he raised his left palm without hesitation and activated the power of the true scarlet fire. Sky-burning palm. His left arm turned red like magma. Scarlet fire spewed out from his palm and condensed into a huge flaming palm that slammed into the five-colored palm. The black hole in his right hand was still devouring the Jade Green Demon King's power and rapidly refining the azure wood spiritual body. Boom! Amidst the deafening loud noise, the burning sky palm and the five-colored giant palm fiercely collided, exploding into flames that blotted out the sky and the sun, blowing up a violent and terrifying hurricane. The fire borrowed the wind's momentum and swept across the ancient green maple tree violently, turning the lush canopy into a sea of fire. The withered branches and withered leaves that had been drained of their azure wood power instantly ignited into a raging fire, and black smoke rose into the sky. The jade-green demon king suffered and let out a painful cry. He was so angry and depressed that he almost vomited blood. The sky-burning palm blocked the green-robed elder's attack. The two giant palms shattered at the same time and quickly dissipated into the sky. The green-robed elder saw that Ji Tianxing had blocked his attack and was unharmed. His pupils constricted and he revealed a shocked expression. "You brat, can actually block this old man's attack?" Although the green-robed elder only used 30% of his strength, it was comparable to a half-step soul refinement realm cultivator. He originally thought that the palm strike just now would definitely be able to severely injure Ji Tianxing. The result was beyond his expectations and made him even more curious about Ji Tianxing. Of course, the ancient green maple tree was burned to a terrible state. Many of its branches were bare, which made him even more furious. "Kid, I didn't expect you to have some ability. I'd like to see if you can block this attack." After saying that, the green-robed elder waved his right hand again and shot out 3 giant swords that were dazzling with golden light toward Ji Tianxing. At the same time, Ji Tianxing's body emitted a azure with spiritual light and a majestic aura. Chapter 742. When Ji Tianxing refined the greenwood spiritual body, a mighty surge of true essence erupted from his body. His strength had increased tremendously. He was one step closer to Sky Origin Stage LV7. Moreover, his life force had doubled. His lifespan had reached the limit of Sky Origin Stage. It was close to 500 years. Such a huge gain made him feel gratified and excited. However, the 3 golden swords from the elder in green robes were about to hit his head with a destructive force. It looked like an ordinary move. It was just a casual move from the elder in green robes. However, he was a powerful soul-tempering stage cultivator after all. His swords were extremely powerful. The 3 golden swords were about 30 meters long. Not only did they have an indestructible sword intent, but they also contained the formless power of the realm. With Ji Tianxing as the center, the space within 1,000 meters was sealed by the power of the realm. The space was almost frozen. Ji Tianxing was suppressed by the power of the realm. He could not escape or dodge. All he could do was watch the golden swords coming down. The only thing he could do was to block them. At this critical moment, he used the seal of mountains and rivers without hesitation. Swoosh! The seal of mountains and rivers emitted a dazzling golden light. It expanded 1,000 times and became as big as a house. It floated above Ji Tianxing's head and protected him. In the next moment, the 3 golden swords hit the seal of mountains and rivers. Clang, 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 clang. 3 deafening sounds of metal clashing echoed in the herb garden. The incomparably sharp golden light sword was shattered on the spot, exploding into millions of golden light shards that scattered in all directions. The poor jade-green monster king was hit again. Many of its branches and leaves were destroyed by the violent energy and the golden shards. It screamed in pain. The flowers and plants around the ancient tree were torn apart by the violent wind. It was a mess. Even the ground of the herb garden was hit by the wind. Countless holes were formed in the ground. The seal of mountains and rivers blocked the attack of the golden swords. Ji Tianxing was unharmed. Seeing this scene, the green-robed old man frowned fiercely, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. "It's a soul-level magical treasure? Who is this kid? He actually possesses a soul-grade magic treasure?" Although the green-robed elder didn't recognize that the seal of mountains and rivers was a region lord's golden seal, the green-robed elder didn't recognize it. But he also understood that a young expert that was capable of possessing a soul-grade magic treasure surely had an extraordinary background. "Brat, who are you? Tell me your name." The green-robed old man temporarily stopped his attack and stared at Ji Tianxing with a burning gaze as he asked in a deep voice. Ji Tianxing put away the seal of mountains and rivers and looked at him indifferently. He said expressionlessly, Do you think this matter can be written off if I tell you my name? The old man frowned and shouted in a dignified voice, You wish. You barged into the herb garden without permission and heavily injured this old man's ancient green maple tree. How can this old man let you off so easily? No matter who you are or what kind of background you have, this old man will take you down today and punish you severely. As he spoke, the green-robed old man slowly raised his hands, and his entire body emitted a powerful and domineering aura. Previously, he had been attacking with one hand and had only used 30% of his power. In the end, he had not been able to capture Ji Tianxing in 2 consecutive moves. Not only did he lose face, but he had also worsened Jade Green Demon King's injuries. He was finally enraged. He was going to use all his power to take down Ji Tianxing in one fell swoop. As the green-robed old man activated his power, strong winds blew in all directions in the sky. The air also became violent and fierce. The entire herb garden was sealed by an invisible force and was about to form a domain. Finally, the green-robed old man's aura reached its peak and was about to attack. Ji Tianxing also acted as if he was facing a formidable enemy. He exploded with all his power and was about to use his trump card to block the old man's attack. Right at this moment, a clear and melodious voice came from outside the herb garden. Tianxing, Tianxing, where are you? This was a woman's voice. It was like the sound of nature and contained a hint of coldness. However, this voice was filled with anxiety and worry. When the green-robed old man and Ji Tianxing heard this voice, their expressions changed, and they quickly stopped attacking. The two of them turned to look at the entrance of the herb garden at the same time. The battle intent that had accumulated in their bodies was quickly withdrawn. Soon after, a beautiful woman in a long white dress with an aura as cold as a fairy appeared at the entrance of the herb garden. She was blocked outside by the herb garden's defensive array and was looking into the garden anxiously. When the green-robed old man saw her, he immediately withdrew his mysterious and vast power and flew over with a smile. Swoosh! His figure flashed and teleported to the entrance of the herb garden. His eyes were gentle as he asked in a kind tone, Yao Yao, why are you here? Without a doubt, this beautiful woman in a white dress who had arrived unexpectedly was Yun Yao. When she saw the kind-looking green-robed old man, she immediately revealed a faint smile and quickly bowed. Yao Yao greets grandfather. The green-robed old man nodded with a smile. He waved his hand to open the herb garden's gate and removed the defensive array. Yun Yao quickly stepped into the herb garden and walked to the front of the green-robed old man. She asked, Grandfather, have you seen Tianxing? Has he been here before? Tianxing? The green-robed old man frowned and revealed a puzzled look. You mean Ji Tianxing? Is he the Mr. Right that your father told me about? Yun Yao lowered her head shyly. She nodded and said, Yes, that's him. He's wearing a white robe and is about 18 or 19 years old. He's tall and straight and has a handsome face. When the green-robed old man heard her words, his expression suddenly became a little strange. He subconsciously turned his head and looked at Ji Tianxing in the herb garden. Yun Yao followed his gaze and immediately saw Ji Tianxing in the sky. Tianxing, you're really here. When she saw Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao heaved a sigh of relief. There was a hint of joy in her voice. However, she immediately saw the scene in the herb garden. The half-withered ancient green maple tree, as well as the craters and broken flowers on the ground, undoubtedly proved that a battle had taken place here before. How smart was Yun Yao? When she saw the mess in the herb garden, she immediately guessed the reason. Her expression suddenly changed. She looked at Ji Tianxing in disbelief and then looked at the green-robed old man beside her. Grandpa, did you get into a fight with Tianxing just now? The green-robed old man's face was instantly filled with shock. He didn't know how to answer Yun Yao. He turned his head to look at Ji Tianxing and said in a strange tone, You're Ji Tianxing? The #1 genius of the human race that Yun Zhongqi mentioned, the emperor of the monarch mansion and the ruler of the Tianshan region, is that you? Ji Tianxing flew to the entrance of the herb garden and came to the side of the green-robed old man and Yun Yao. He was also shocked. He looked at the green-robed old man with a complicated expression and asked in disbelief, You're Yao Yao's grandfather? Then aren't you Miracle Dr. Bailey? Chapter 743. Seeing their reactions, Yun Yao was even more certain of her guess. She looked at Ji Tianxing with concern and asked worriedly, Tianxing, why did you come to Grandpa's herb garden? Did he hurt you? Yun Yao's concern warmed Ji Tianxing's heart. When Miracle Dr. Bailey heard her words, he became even more embarrassed and sighed inwardly. Sigh. Girls are really biased towards outsiders. Ji Tianxing waved his hand at Yun Yao and comforted her. Yao Yao, I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me. Just now, I had a misunderstanding with Miracle Dr. Bailey, so we had a conflict and exchanged a few moves. However, he showed mercy and I wasn't hurt. Alright, Yao Yao, how did you find this place? Yun Yao saw that he wasn't injured and felt slightly relieved. She quickly explained, I've been waiting for you at the Spirit Spring in the back mountain for a long time, but you didn't come to find me. I looked for you everywhere in Cloud Spirit Palace but couldn't find you, so I personally went to Hefeng Garden. The maid in Hefeng Garden told me that you had already gone to the back mountain to find me. I guess that you couldn't find the place and most likely went the wrong way, so I came here to find you. I didn't expect you to be here. Hearing her words, Ji Tianxing finally understood what had happened and vaguely understood something. Yun Yao looked at Miracle Dr. Bailey and said with a slightly reproachful tone, Grandpa, you're a great expert in the spirit refining realm. How can you fight with a junior? Moreover, Tianxing almost lost his life in order to save me. He even lost a lot of his vitality. If I came a little later, I don't know what kind of trouble would have happened. Miracle Dr. Bailey loved Yun Yao very much. He had been traveling the world all these years and couldn't take care of Yun Yao and Bailey Ningsu. He was full of guilt. Hearing Yun Yao's words, although he was a little depressed and wronged, he wasn't angry at all. His old face revealed a bitter smile and explained to Yun Yao, Yao Yao, you can't blame Grandpa for this. Grandpa was taking care of the herbs in the garden. Who knew that this kid would suddenly break into the herb garden and use a secret technique to devour the ancient green maple tree's power? That ancient green maple tree was an ancient species that Grandfather had spent a few years to find in the great swamp of the southern wasteland. It was extremely rare and precious. This kid, not only did he devour the ancient green maple tree's power, he also almost destroyed the entire ancient green maple tree. Yao, tell me, how can Grandpa not be angry? Grandpa doesn't know him and he didn't tell us his name. Of course, Grandpa has to punish him. After Yun Yao finished listening to Divine Dr. Bailey's words, she understood the course of events. She furrowed her brows and pulled Miracle Dr. Bailey's arm. She acted like a spoiled child and said, Grandfather. This is a misunderstanding. You can't blame Tianxing. He was originally recuperating at his residence. I sent someone to find him and asked him to come to the Spirit Spring behind the mountain to find me. He's not familiar with the roads in Cloud Spirit Palace. He might have taken the wrong path and accidentally came here. He definitely wouldn't destroy your ancient green maple tree on purpose. Seeing Yun Yao defend Ji Tianxing, Miracle Dr. Bailey didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The illusion dust array is set up outside. The herb garden also has a defensive array. How could he accidentally break in? Grandpa told you how to activate the illusion dust array. That's why you could pass through the array and come here. Miracle Dr. Bailey was stunned when he said this. He immediately reacted and thought of a problem. He looked at Ji Tianxing with bright eyes and asked, Kid, how did you break in? Did you break the illusion dust array and the herb garden's defensive array? Miracle Dr. Bailey stared at Ji Tianxing with a burning gaze. His tone was strange and his heart was filled with anticipation. Subconsciously, he didn't believe that Ji Tianxing could break the two arrays. After all, that was the supreme-grade Heaven Essence array that he personally set up. It was very mysterious and powerful. But Ji Tianxing nodded calmly and explained, I did break the two arrays. However, this is all a misunderstanding. Before he could finish, Miracle Dr. Bailey's eyes widened in disbelief as he let out a cry of surprise. That's the supreme-grade Heaven Essence array that I personally set up. You actually broke it in a short day? How is this possible? Ji Tianxing smiled embarrassedly and didn't reply. Yun Yao revealed a proud look and said to Miracle Dr. Bailey, "Grandpa, you might not know, but Tianxing's array attainments are already worthy of being called an array grandmaster. Arrays below the spirit rank can't stump him at all." Miracle Dr. Bailey was even more shocked. He looked at Ji Tianxing with a burning gaze and murmured, "No wonder Yun Zhongqi is so generous with his praise and favors you so much. Kid, you're only at Sky Origin Stage 6, but you can block 2 of my attacks and even break my array. You're indeed a prodigy." When Miracle Dr. Bailey had just returned to Cloud Spirit Palace, Yun Zhongqi had told him about Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao. Not only did Yun Zhongqi introduce Ji Tianxing's background, but he also told him about his many glorious deeds. He was very satisfied with him. Miracle Dr. Bailey doted on Yun Yao. Naturally, he loved her and her dog. He also had a good impression of Yun Yao's Mr. Right and had always wanted to find a chance to meet him. Today, he finally met Ji Tianxing with his own eyes. Although the way they met was a little special and the process was a little awkward. However, he had personally fought with Ji Tianxing and knew Ji Tianxing's strength better. That was why he sighed. Yun Yao saw that her grandfather's impression of Ji Tianxing had changed significantly. The atmosphere was also much more relaxed. She took the opportunity to say, "Grandfather, this is just a misunderstanding. Tianxing didn't mean to offend you. You're a magnanimous old man. Please don't be so calculative with Tianxing, right?" Ji Tianxing also quickly bowed to Miracle Dr. Bailey and said apologetically, "Miracle Dr. Bailey, I didn't know your identity just now. Please forgive me for offending you." Miracle Dr. Bailey's anger had already dissipated by more than half. Although the ancient green maple tree was tortured half to death and it made his heart ache. However, for Yun Yao's sake, he didn't pursue Ji Tianxing's crime. He stroked his white beard and slightly nodded. "Since Yao Yao is so protective of you and this matter is just a misunderstanding, how can this old man not let it go? Ji Tianxing, this old man won't be calculative with you for Yao Yao's sake. This matter is over. Fortunately, the ancient green maple tree hasn't been destroyed. This old man will take care of it for a few years and it will slowly recover." Seeing that Miracle Dr. Bailey forgave Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao immediately smiled and said to him, "I knew it. Grandpa, you're the most magnanimous person." "Thank you, Grandpa." The level of flattery wasn't high, but it made Miracle Dr. Bailey very happy as a kind smile appeared on his face. He looked at Yun Yao with an amiable expression and said, "All right, Yao Yao. You take Tianxing back first. Grandpa still has to clean up the mess in the medicinal garden." Unexpectedly, Yun Yao didn't have the intention to leave. She said with a face full of expectation, "Grandpa, Tianxing was eroded by the blood-dissipating curse and his vitality has been greatly damaged. Yao Yao knows that your medical skills are unparalleled in the world. You can definitely help him recuperate and recover his vitality, right?" Hearing her words, Miracle Dr. Bailey suddenly stared blankly. He frowned and asked, "Yao Yao, you want Grandpa to treat him?" "Of course." Yun Yao quickly nodded and said with a smile, "Yao Yao wanted to bring Tianxing to see you before and ask you to treat him. Since you've seen Tianxing today, why don't you take this opportunity to treat him?" Miracle Dr. Bailey pondered and didn't speak, but he secretly smiled bitterly in his heart. Chapter 744. Miracle Dr. Bailey remained silent, seemingly unwilling to help. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing quickly persuaded Yun Yao, "Yao Yao, there's no need to trouble Miracle Dr. Bailey. I've already removed the blood-dissipating curse. My injuries and strength have recovered. It's nothing serious." Yun Yao shook her head and said in a concerned tone, "Tianxing, although you're fine now, the blood-dissipating curse is very vicious. What if there are hidden dangers? Grandpa's medical skills are unparalleled in the world. Let him take a look at your condition. Only then can I be completely relieved." After saying that, she looked at Miracle Dr. Bailey with eyes full of expectation and said eagerly, "Grandpa, please help Yao Yao this time." Sigh. Miracle Dr. Bailey sighed helplessly. He couldn't resist Yun Yao's persistence, so he nodded and agreed. Yao Yao, you've already said so much. How can Grandpa not help you? He looked at Ji Tianxing and slowly stretched out his right hand, releasing an invisible force of divine soul that shrouded Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing quickly waved his hand and refused. He said seriously, "Miracle Dr. Bailey, you really don't have to help me." Before he could finish, Miracle Dr. Bailey frowned and shouted in a deep voice, "Cut the crap. Don't take advantage of me. I'll help you check your injuries. You just stand there obediently." Ji Tianxing was suddenly speechless and smiled bitterly in his heart. It seems that I've offended Yao Yao's grandpa today. The old man has a big opinion of me. Seeing that Miracle Dr. Bailey seemed to be angry, he couldn't refuse anymore. He could only stand still and let Miracle Dr. Bailey use his divine soul to check him. Miracle Dr. Bailey's divine soul shrouded Ji Tianxing silently and carefully checked his condition. Whether it was his skin, flesh, internal organs, or bone marrow, nothing could hide under the investigation of divine soul. It didn't take long for Miracle Dr. Bailey to figure out his physical condition. This brat's body is completely unharmed. It doesn't look like he was affected by the blood dissipation curse at all. Divine Dr. Bailey furrowed his brows as a trace of doubt flashed across his eyes. Manipulating his spiritual energy, he continued to investigate and analyze. Soon, he discovered something else that surprised him. This kid's skin, flesh, blood, and bones are actually so tough. No wonder the ancient green maple tree was unable to pierce through his skin. His physical body had been tempered to the extreme, comparable to a half-step soul refinement realm expert. This kid actually has the Greenwood spiritual body? With such a rare heaven-grade physique, he can indeed be called a top genius. No wonder he could devour the power of the ancient green maple tree. Divine Dr. Bailey was full of shock and expectation. He continued to use the soul secret technique to investigate Ji Tianxing's situation more carefully. This brat's meridians are very strange. A normal person only had 9 main meridians, but he actually had 18 meridians. Moreover, every meridian was shining with golden light and had been tempered to become incomparably tough. He actually had 108 acupoints. 36 more acupoints than a normal person? This is too inconceivable, isn't it? I've lived for 300 years and have never seen such strange meridians and acupoints. What kind of freak is he? He actually has such an unprecedented physique? The more Divine Dr. Bailey investigated, the more secrets he discovered, and the more shocked he was. He even felt that his horizons had been broadened. He could not believe that there was actually someone in this world who had such a miraculous physique. As a divine doctor, he was clearer than anyone that the physical body, meridians, and acupoints were the foundation of martial arts. It determined a martial artist's martial arts talent. For a special physique like Ji Tianxing, not only did he have incomparable martial arts talent, his future martial arts achievements were also unimaginable. This kid's physique is so special. I wonder what the Yuan Dan he condensed would be like? This thought flashed across Divine Dr. Bailey's mind as he used his spiritual energy to investigate Ji Tianxing's dantian. However, when his spiritual energy reached the vicinity of Ji Tianxing's dantian, it was blocked by an invisible mysterious force. He could not detect the situation of Ji Tianxing's dantian at all. All he could see was a blurry gray fog. This kid's dantian is actually protected by a mysterious and powerful force. Even my spiritual energy cannot detect it? How can this be? How can this be? What kind of secret is this kid hiding in his body? Divine Dr. Bailey was even more shocked. His heart was filled with horror and disbelief. No matter how knowledgeable he was, he had never encountered such a situation. No wonder this kid is known as the #1 genius of the human race. He has such powerful strength at such a young age. With his martial arts talent and aptitude, he will soon become a spirit cultivation realm expert. It is even highly possible that he will break through to the primordial soul realm within 100 years. A primordial soul realm expert who is not even 100 years old. He is definitely an unprecedented genius. No, he is an exceptional demon. Thinking of this, Miracle Dr. Bailey's heart was set off stormy waves, giving birth to thick excitement. He looked at Ji Tianxing with a burning gaze. While he was excited, he also felt proud and gratified for Yun Yao. Yao Yao really has a good eye for talent. She can actually pick out a demon like Ji Tianxing from the masses. No wonder Yao Yao is so infatuated with him and Yun Zhongqi likes him so much. In the entire Middle State, there is no one more outstanding than Ji Tianxing. Divine Dr. Bailey was not only a spirit cultivation realm expert but also a peerless divine doctor. His judgment and knowledge were very unique and accurate. He had never seen Ji Tianxing before. He had only heard about Ji Tianxing from Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu. At that time, he did not believe that Ji Tianxing was that outstanding. He had always been skeptical. Today, he saw Ji Tianxing with his own eyes. He even checked Ji Tianxing's talent, foundation, and physique. He finally believed Yun Zhongqi's words. In fact, he even felt that Yun Zhongqi's evaluation of Ji Tianxing wasn't accurate enough. In his opinion, Ji Tianxing was more than the number one genius of the human race. In the entire Tianxian continent, there was no one more outstanding than Ji Tianxing. This kid could be called the number one genius of the continent. Thinking of this, Divine Dr. Bailey quickly retracted his divine soul. He nodded excitedly and praised with a gratified face. Good. That's great. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao were confused by Zhang Xian's agitated reaction. They were filled with doubt. Yun Yao frowned and asked in confusion, Grandpa, what's wrong with you? What's great? Cough cough. Divine Dr. Bailey came back to his senses and pretended to cough to cover up his embarrassment. His expression became calm again. Stroking his white beard, he said to Yun Yao with a kind face, Of course, I'm talking about Ji Tianxing's injuries. I've checked him carefully. There's no injury in his body, and there's no remnant of the curse. He can't be any better. Yun Yao was relieved when she heard this. However, she felt that her grandfather's reaction was a little strange. She asked worriedly, Grandfather, you're not lying to me, right? Is Tianxing really okay? Divine Dr. Bailey stared at her and said in a dignified tone, You child, how could I lie to you? Yun Yao was completely relieved. She bowed to him and said, Thank you for your help, grandfather. Ji Tianxing also bowed to him and thanked him. Divine Dr. Bailey stroked his beard and nodded calmly, All right, if there's nothing else, you can go back. Grandfather, we won't disturb you anymore. We'll take our leave now. Yun Yao hurriedly bowed and took her leave. Then, she left the herb garden with Ji Tianxing. Divine Dr. Bailey stood at the entrance of the herb garden. Looking at Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao's backs, a gratified smile flashed in his eyes. Chapter 745. An hour later, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao left the back of the mountain and returned to Hefeng Garden. After closing the door, the two of them entered the study and began to talk secretly. Yun Yao looked at Ji Tianxing and asked in a serious tone, Tianxing, I asked the maid, a Jew, to look for you. How did you go the wrong way and run to grandfather's herb garden? Didn't a Jew bring you there personally? Ji Tianxing nodded and said calmly, The maid said that servants were not allowed to enter the forbidden area, so she pointed the way for me and told me to go right. I walked along the path on the right and broke into an illusion array. After I broke the array, I arrived at the entrance of Miracle Dr. Bailey's herb garden. I see. Yun Yao suddenly understood. A cold light flashed in her eyes as she thought to herself, A Jew has been in Cloud Spirit Palace for 20 years and is very familiar with the situation in the palace. She must know that the left side of the fork is the spirit spring, and the right side is grandfather's herb garden. It seems that she deliberately pointed Tianxing the wrong way, which caused Tianxing to fall into the illusion array and break into grandfather's herb garden. Thinking of this, Yun Yao's expression turned cold, and a trace of anger surged in her heart. A Jew is just a maid. She definitely doesn't have the guts to frame Tianxing. It's most likely that cousin ordered her to do it. Why did cousin do this? That illusion array is not a killing array, so it won't endanger Tianxing's life. However, Tianxing is trapped in the illusion array. If he can't break the array, he will be trapped for at least half a month. Why did cousin set up a trap to trap Tianqing? It's clearly the first time he met Tianqing, and he doesn't have any grudges with Tianqing. Moreover, cousin has always been very sensible and is deeply valued and trusted by my mother. Thinking of this, Yun Yao's body suddenly stiffened, and a thought flashed through her mind. Could it be that my mother ordered cousin to do this? On the surface, she accepted Tianqing, but in reality, she still doesn't agree with me being with Tianqing? Yun Yao's mood suddenly became a little gloomy, and her eyes became disappointed and angry. Tianqing sensed that something was wrong with her and hurriedly asked, Yao Yao, what's wrong? Yun Yao came back to her senses and shook her head gently. I'm fine. I'm just a little scared and relieved. Fortunately, I arrived in time and Grandpa didn't hurt you. If I had been a little late, the consequences would have been unimaginable. There would have been no way to resolve this matter. Tianqing quickly comforted her. Yao Yao, you worry too much. Dr. Bailey is a highly respected senior who is benevolent. Even if he's angry, he won't kill me. At most, he'll capture me and punish me. Yun Yao nodded and said with a tone of self-blame, Tianqing, I didn't think this through and was careless. I thought that there wouldn't be any conspiracies in my own home, so I let my guard down. I didn't expect that I would almost make a big mistake. Later, I will send a trusted maid to serve you in Hefeng Garden. If there's anything, I will let her pass on the message. Tianqing originally wanted to refuse, but he was afraid that Yun Yao would be worried, so he nodded and agreed. That's good. At least no one will have a chance to take advantage of this. I didn't expect that Cloud Spirit Palace isn't peaceful either. Someone actually wants to harm me. From now on, I will be more careful and won't cause you any trouble. Yun Yao held his hands and gently shook her head. Tianqing, as long as it's related to you, it's not trouble to me. I'm not afraid of trouble. I'm only afraid that you will be hurt. Tianqing nodded and smiled. He opened his arms and hugged her. The two of them hugged each other intimately and snuggled tightly together. Although the two of them did not speak, their minds were connected. They understood each other's worries and concerns. The two of them were affectionate for a while. Then Yun Yao stood up and left Hefeng Garden. After she left Hefeng Garden, it was almost noon. Yun Yao didn't go back to her palace. She went straight to Zhu Fifen's residence to find him. Half an hour later, she entered the house where Zhu Fifen lived. When the guards at the gate saw her, they didn't dare to stop or ask questions. They immediately knelt on the ground and saluted her respectfully. Greetings, miss. Yun Yao ignored them. She stepped through the gate with a frosty face, passed through the house full of elixirs, and walked into the dignified hall and living room. Two clever maids quickly poured tea for her and prepared a seat for her. However, Yun Yao stood in the hall expressionlessly. She had no intention of sitting down. She ordered in a cold voice, Go and report to the young master. Ask him to come to the hall to see me. The two maids were stunned. They could tell that Yun Yao didn't come with good intentions, so they quickly left the hall to report the news. It didn't take long for Zhu Fifen to come after hearing the news. He gracefully stepped into the hall with a purple jade folding fan. When he saw Yun Yao's figure, he immediately showed a warm smile and said in a gentle tone, Cousin Yao Yao, why do you suddenly want to see your cousin today? Cousin, don't stand there. Please sit down and talk. Zhu Fifen walked to Yun Yao and asked her to sit down and drink tea. However, Yun Yao glanced at him indifferently and said in a deep voice, Ask the servants to leave. I have something to tell you. Zhu Fifen's heart suddenly thumped when he saw her reaction. He had a bad premonition. However, he remained calm on the surface and still maintained a gentle and elegant smile. He waved his hand to signal the maids and guards to leave. When the servants left and only the two of them were left in the hall, Zhu Fifen said calmly, Cousin Yao Yao, you can say what you want to say now. Yun Yao looked at him sharply and said in a cold and firm tone, Zhu Fifen, Tianqing is my husband. I won't marry anyone else but him in this life. I must grow old with him. No one, not even my mother, can stop me from being with Tianqing. Zhu Fifen pretended not to understand the meaning of her words. He nodded with a smile and said, Of course, Tianqing and you are a match made in heaven. A talented man and a beautiful woman, a perfect match. Even if concubine doesn't agree with you being together for the time being, she will accept Ji Tianxing sooner or later. As for me, I have always blessed you from the beginning to the end. Otherwise, I wouldn't have told you about the Nirvana crystal and helped you save Ji Tianxing. Yun Yao frowned slightly and said in a cold tone, "Since you know this, you should learn to be smarter and stop having crooked thoughts. If you are stubborn and dare to do something unfavorable to Tianxing, don't blame me for being ruthless. At that time, there will be no place for you in Yunling Palace." Zhu Fifan's face suddenly stiffened and showed a startled expression. He asked in confusion, "Yao Yao, what are you talking about? Why can't I understand what you are saying? How can I be unfavorable to Tianxing? Did you misunderstand something?" Yun Yao glanced at him, but didn't want to waste her breath on him. She said in a deep voice, "You don't have to say more. I know the truth." Chapter 746. After Yun Yao said this, she turned around and walked out of the hall. She quickly left. Zhu Fifan stood in the hall and looked at Yun Yao's back as she left. His face turned gloomy. I didn't expect that I couldn't hide it from Yun Yao. She figured out the truth so quickly. Ji Tianxing, that brat, was trapped in the illusion dust array. How could he break it so quickly? What kind of freak is he? I had been very careful, but I still underestimated him. Zhu Fifan's handsome face was faintly cold. His eyes were flickering with a cold light as well as a strong hatred. Even though I have been living in Cloud Spirit Palace for 20 years and have been working for Aunt Yun Yao loyally, they still don't treat me as their family. On the contrary, Ji Tianxing, that bastard, has only been to Cloud Spirit Palace twice and hasn't married Yun Yao yet. Now they treat him as their family. Yun Yao threatened me and even wanted to kick me out of Cloud Spirit Palace for Ji Tianxing. I have had enough of the humiliation of living under someone else's roof. Zhu Fifan roared in his heart. Deep humiliation and anger caused his face to contort and his eyes to surge with deep hatred. Unknowingly, 2 days had passed. Today was the 5th day that Ji Tianxing had been living in Cloud Spirit Palace. Since that incident, Ji Tianxing had been staying in He Feng Garden to practice the pure heart demon subduing skill. He didn't even step out of the door of the small courtyard. As he continued to practice, he had a deeper understanding of the pure heart demon subduing skill. He felt that this skill was mysterious and powerful. He had made up his mind to practice the pure heart demon subduing skill in addition to practicing the sword heart Dao in order to improve his strength rapidly. For the past 2 days, he had been practicing in seclusion in his room. The little black dragon had been sleeping in the 100 treasures brocade pouch. Although it had expressed that it wanted to find the dragon crystal as soon as possible so that it could advance to heaven origin stage smoothly. However, it also knew that Ji Tianxing was busy with other things and didn't have time to help it find the dragon crystal. It could only suppress this thought at the bottom of its heart and silently cultivate to increase its strength. Qian Yu, on the other hand, could not stay idle. After staying in the 100 treasures brocade pouch for 2 days, she felt bored and wanted to go out for some fresh air. Ji Tianxing did not stop it and allowed it to go out and play. It enjoyed the scenery and beauties in Cloud's Soul Palace. After all, there were countless maids and maidservants in Cloud Spirit Palace. They were all beautiful and pleasing to the eye. Of course, when Qianyu was playing around in Cloud Spirit Palace, she remembered Ji Tianxing's warning and did not cause any trouble. On the contrary, it was very smart and well-behaved. It was deeply loved by the maidservants of Cloud Soul Palace and played with them very happily. Cloud Spirit Palace was peaceful and peaceful. The atmosphere was harmonious and calm. There were only 5 days left until Divine Dr. Bailey's birthday banquet. The entire Yun family was busy with this matter. The palace was filled with a festive atmosphere. Many servants and maids had already begun to decorate the palace with lanterns and banners. That night, the night sky was dark, with no stars or moon. There was a city thousands of miles away from Cloud Soul Palace called Autumn Wind City. This ancient city had a history of 800 years and exuded an ancient and vigorous aura. Autumn Wind City was very quiet at night. There were very few people on the streets. In a certain deep house in the south of the city, a few dim yellow lights were lit. In a secret room in the depths of the house, two middle-aged men were whispering to each other. One of them was thin and had a resolute and dignified face. He sat upright on a large white jade chair. This man wore a square azure crown and had a goatee on his chin. He was the head of the Duanmu family, Duanmu Huang. The other middle-aged man wore a purple robe and had a tall and burly figure. His eyes faintly flashed with a frightening cold light and his entire body was filled with killing intent. This man was the hall master of the Hall of Soul Husbandry, Xing Jian. He stood in front of Duanmu Huang and said in a respectful tone, "Master, I have already completed the task you asked me to do. I've already informed the spy, and she'll be here soon." Hearing this, Duanmu Huang slightly nodded and revealed a cold smile. Many years ago, when I decided to deal with Cloud Soul Palace, I had already placed many spies in Cloud Soul Palace. After so many years, many of my spies have been exposed and eliminated by the Yun family. Only Luo was hidden the deepest. Not only was she not discovered or suspected, but she was also highly valued by the Yun family and became their trusted aide. This time, she can finally be put to good use. As the hall master of the soul-hurting hall, Xing Jian was a cruel and bloodthirsty assassin. He was not good at flattery. He did not take the opportunity to flatter. Instead, he asked in confusion, "Master, in order to not expose Luo's identity, you have not contacted her for so many years. Why did you suddenly contact her tonight? Could it be that you have already arranged the next step of the plan?" Duanmu Huang nodded and revealed a confident smile. "Of course. This time, I will give the Yun family a big surprise. That old bastard, Yun Zhongqi, actually joined forces with Ji Tianqing. He supported Ji Tianqing and destroyed my Duanmu family's herb garden. He caused my Duanmu family to fall into such a pitiful state. Furthermore, he wants to use the opportunity of Miracle Dr. Bailey's birthday celebration to gather all the influential people in Zhong State to discuss important matters. He wants to snatch Zhong State's herb market. Yun Zhongqi is so ruthless and wants to kill all of us. How can I let him go? During this birthday celebration, I will definitely cause chaos in Cloud Soul Palace and make Ji Tianqing and the Yun family become enemies." Hearing this, Xing Jian revealed a shocked and confused expression. He asked, "Master, Ji Tianqing and the Yun family have a close relationship. Yun Zhongqi likes him very much. How can they be enemies? What plan do you have?" Duanmu Huang revealed a meaningful expression and sneered, "You don't have to ask. You will know later." Not long after, light footsteps could be heard from outside the secret room. A cold female voice could be heard through the stone door. "Luo is here on orders to meet Master." Hearing this voice, Duanmu Huang revealed a faint smile and waved his hand to signal Xing Jian to open the stone door. After the stone door opened, a figure wearing a black robe and a cloak walked into the secret room. This person's figure was covered by a large black robe and her face was covered by a cloak. It was impossible to tell her appearance and age. Only her voice could tell that she was a young woman. Without a doubt, she was the spy that Duanmu Huang had arranged many years ago, Luo. Luo walked in front of Duanmu Huang and bowed respectfully. She said in a respectful tone, "Master, please give your orders." Duanmu Huang did not waste any time. He looked at Luo with a burning gaze and ordered sternly, "Luo, Ji Tianqing is now in Cloud Soul Palace. He is waiting to attend Miracle Dr. Bailey's birthday celebration." Chapter 747. Hearing Duanmu Huang's words, Xing Jian and Luo were stunned. The two of them never thought that Duanmu Huang's plan and orders would be like this. Xing Jian frowned. His eyes glinted as he thought to himself, "The patriarch's vicious plan is too vicious. Once Luo's plan succeeds, Cloud Soul Palace will fall into chaos and Divine Dr. Bailey's birthday banquet will be ruined. Ji Tianqing would definitely become Cloud Spirit Palace's mortal enemy. He would completely break off all ties with Cloud Spirit Palace and become their enemy. At that time, Yun Zhongqi will be filled with anger and kill him with a single palm, right?" Luo was silent for a moment and said in a low voice, "Master, although this plan is vicious, it will be very difficult to succeed. Duanmu Huang nodded and his lips curled into a cold smile. He said, "That's right, it will be very difficult. However, you have always been highly regarded by the Yun family and Bailey Ningsu. You know Bailey Ningsu the best and the chances of success are very high. The difficult part is that Bailey Ningsu also knows you well and her strength is not bad. I'm afraid it will be very easy for her to recognize your aura and see through your disguise. However, since I asked you to carry out this plan, how could I not have made preparations?" As he spoke, Duanmu Huang took out a mysterious sandalwood box from his interspatial ring. There are 3 things in this box. Other than a magic dagger, there is also a pill and a mask. They are all secret treasures I obtained from the Murong family. The pill can conceal your aura and help you fake Ji Tianxing's aura. The mask is also a magic tool that can make you look like Ji Tianxing. No one under the spirit refining realm will be able to see through your disguise. As for the dagger, it is incomparably sharp and indestructible. Moreover, it has been dipped in poison. As he spoke, Duanmu Huang handed the sandalwood box to Luo. Luo received the sandalwood box with both hands and solemnly put it away. He quickly bowed and said, "Since Master has considered everything so thoroughly, this subordinate will not disappoint you. Master, please wait for this subordinate's good news." After he finished speaking, Luo bowed and left the secret room. After Luo left, Duanmu Huang revealed a sinister smile and muttered to himself, "Hee hee, there will be a good show to watch very soon. Ji Tianxing, Ji Tianxing, I really want to see how you will feel when Yun Zhongqi, who you rely on, kills you with his own hands. How would you feel when the person you love turns against you and wants to kill you to avenge her mother?" Pa. Duanmu Huang laughed coldly, his tone filled with coldness and venom, making one's hair stand on end. Cloud Soul Palace was peaceful as usual. For the next 2 days, Ji Tianxing cultivated in Hefeng Garden. His strength was steadily increasing, and his white heart devil subduing art had also reached the small success stage. During this period, Qian Yu went out to play every day. She got along well with the maids in Cloud Soul Palace and became familiar with them. Yun Yao visited Ji Tianxing every day and chatted with him about some interesting things in the palace. Divine Dr. Bailey also sent someone to the Wind Garden to give Ji Tianxing a bottle of Spirit Dawn that could help him cultivate and improve his power. Ji Tianxing asked Yun Yao and found out that she had asked Miracle Dr. Bailey to give him the elixir, which was very beneficial to his cultivation. Other than that, no one else came to disturb Ji Tianxing. Zhu Fifan also tactfully avoided it and never appeared again. 2 days passed quickly. Miracle Dr. Bailey's 300th birthday was in 2 days' time. In these few days, everyone in the Yun family was busy preparing for the birthday banquet. Cloud Soul Palace was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Some guests had already arrived in advance. Tomorrow, more guests would come to the banquet and Cloud Soul Palace would be more lively. When night fell in Thousand Cloud Palace, Bailey Ningsu was sitting at the table in her room, holding a cup of spirit tea and silently sipping it. She frowned and thought about something. Her personal maid, Yun Luo, stood quietly to the side, not making the slightest sound to avoid disturbing her thoughts. The matter between Yao Yao and Ji Tianxing is now known by everyone in Cloud Soul Palace. Many people have a good impression of Ji Tianxing. Many of the younger generation even respect and worship Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing, this brat, not only is he talented in martial arts, but he also has a mysterious background. He is also infatuated with Yao Yao and would rather sacrifice his life to save Yao Yao. These thoughts flashed through Bailey Ningsu's mind and her heart was slightly warm. She thought to herself, Ji Tianxing is growing so fast that he can be a good match for Yao Yao. Moreover, he is so attentive to Yao Yao which makes me, as his mother, feel relieved. A woman, even if she is a noble, must marry a man who is devoted to her in order to obtain happiness. Since it is like this, why don't I use this opportunity to probe Ji Tianxing and see if he has any plans to get married? If the conditions are right, I will let him and Yao Yao get married as soon as possible and settle the matter between me and Patriarch. Bailey Ningsu thought for a while and finally made up her mind. She ordered Yun Luo beside her. Yun Luo, go to Hefeng Garden and ask Ji Tianxing to come see me. Tell him that I want to see him alone and discuss something important with him. Yun Luo nodded and quickly cupped her hands. This servant obeys. After speaking, Yun Luo turned and left. After she left Thousand Cloud Palace, she went straight to Hefeng Garden. Outside the palace, the curtain of night was already dark. Inside Cloud Soul Palace, the lanterns were lit and everywhere was brightly lit. Yun Luo left Thousand Cloud Palace and rushed to Hefeng Garden while frowning. In 2 days, Divine Dr. Bailey's birthday banquet will be held. I don't have much time left. I have waited for a few days and haven't found a suitable opportunity. If I don't act now, I won't be able to complete Master's orders. Bailey Ningsu wants to see Ji Tianxing alone. This is a good opportunity. Why don't I take this opportunity? Thinking of this, Yun Luo made up her mind. Seeing that there was no one around, she rushed to the left side of the road behind a jade statue. Not long after, when she came out from behind the statue and returned to the Bluestone Road, she had already changed her appearance. Previously, she was wearing the Yun family servant's embroidered dress. Now, she had changed into a luxurious white robe and combed her hair into a bun, becoming a man. Moreover, her body shape had also changed. She had become a tall and handsome young man in high spirits. Especially her appearance, she had also changed into a handsome and extraordinary man's face. Her figure, appearance, and aura were all the same as Ji Tianxing's. Yun Luo did not dare to delay any longer. She quickly turned and left, following the main road back to Thousand Cloud Palace. After she left, not far from the roadside forest, an ice-blue figure appeared. Chapter 748. Qianyu held a jar of wine in its paws and was about to rush back to Hefeng Garden to invite Ji Tianxing to taste the wine. However, it saw a strange scene just now. It clearly saw a tall and thin servant girl walk up to the statue by the roadside. In the blink of an eye, a young man walked out from behind the statue. Moreover, the back and appearance of the young man in white robes vaguely resembled Ji Tianxing. Qianyu was stunned. It shook its head vigorously and muttered to itself. It was clearly a woman. How did she turn into a man in the blink of an eye? And he looks like old Ji? Could it be that I drank too much and my eyes were playing tricks on me? Qianyu was full of doubts. It quickly flew behind the jade statue and looked around. The result was obvious. There was no one behind the statue. There was not even a shadow. That's not right. This is too strange. There must be a problem. No, I have to hurry back and find old Ji. Qianyu immediately sobered up. It realized that something was wrong and quickly turned around to return to Hefeng Garden. Swoosh! Qianyu hugged the wine jar and flew back to Hefeng Garden. As soon as it entered the courtyard, it did not have time to put down the wine jar. It rushed to Ji Tianxing's door. Old Ji! Old Ji, are you there? Qianyu shouted through the door, its voice filled with anxiety. In the dimly lit room, Ji Tianxing's voice immediately sounded. Qianyu, what happened? Following his voice, the door opened with a creak. Qianyu rushed into the room and saw Ji Tianxing sitting on the bed, looking at it suspiciously. Seeing Ji Tianxing's posture, it was obvious that he had been meditating in the room. Seeing this, Qianyu was even more certain that something was wrong. It quickly said to Ji Tianxing, Old Ji, on my way back, I saw something strange. A servant girl went behind a statue by the roadside and turned into a man in the blink of an eye. He looked exactly like you. Ji Tianxing suddenly frowned and showed a puzzled expression. Qianyu, are you drunk? What nonsense are you talking about? Qianyu looked down at the wine jar and quickly placed it on the table. He looked at Ji Tianxing with a serious face and said in a serious tone, Old Ji, I'm not drunk. I saw it with my own eyes. Ji Tianxing saw that it was clear-headed and didn't seem to be lying, so he said seriously, Then tell me slowly, what happened? It's like this, when I came back just now. Qianyu hurriedly told the story in full detail, not concealing or omitting anything. After listening to its words, Ji Tianxing immediately frowned, and his face became somewhat gloomy. You're saying that you personally saw a maid taking on my appearance and rushing toward the Thousand Cloud Palace? Yeah. Qian Yu quickly nodded and said in a low voice, "Old Ji, I think this matter is very strange. I'm afraid there's some conspiracy." The Thousand Cloud Palace is Yun Yao's mother's palace. Why don't we quickly go and take a look? We don't want to cause any misunderstandings. Ji Tianxing also had the same idea and immediately got out of bed. Let's go, we'll go quickly. I want to see who's playing tricks and what kind of tricks they're trying to play. As he spoke, he led Qian Yu out the door. Inside the Thousand Cloud Palace, the lights were bright and the atmosphere was peaceful and solemn. Dressed in a white robe and disguised as Ji Tianxing, Yun Luo calmly walked through the corridor and stairs towards Bailey Ningsu's room. Along the way, when the servants and guards saw her, they all showed a respectful expression and respectfully saluted her, calling her young Master Ji. Yun Luo didn't pay attention to these servants and guards at all. Along the way, she was silent and calm. A moment later, she arrived outside Bailey Ningsu's room and said in a low voice, "Junior Ji Tianxing greets Madam Yun." Inside the luxurious and elegant room, Bailey Ningsu was sitting by the table in deep thought. Hearing Ji Tianxing's voice, she immediately recovered and said in a gentle voice, "Come in." The door opened and Yun Luo walked in, standing in front of Bailey Ningsu. "Tianxing greets Auntie. What instructions does Auntie have for summoning me in the middle of the night?" Yun Luo's voice and tone were exactly the same as Ji Tianxing's. Her posture was also neither servile nor overbearing, revealing a trace of confidence and pride. Bailey Ningsu looked at him with a gentle gaze and reached out a slender hand, indicating for him to sit down and talk. "Tianxing, you don't need to be so nervous. Auntie summoned you here to discuss a matter with you alone." Bailey Ningsu's expression and tone were very gentle. There was even a faint smile on her face. At this moment, she had accepted Ji Tianxing from her heart. Her entire body was emitting the radiance of a mother, as well as the benevolence and bearing of an elder. "What does Auntie want to discuss with me?" Yun Luo pretended to sit down next to Bailey Ningsu as she spoke. Without a sound, she was already within 5 steps of Bailey Ningsu. This distance was the best for a Sky Origin stage expert to attack. One strike was sure to hit, and there was no way to dodge. However, Bailey Ningsu wasn't prepared at all. She didn't know that this Ji Tianxing in front of her had already begun to emit a murderous intent. She lowered her head and held the teacup, gently sipping a mouthful of spirit tea. She was thinking of how to tactfully test Ji Tianxing's attitude. While she was deep in thought, Yun Luo's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. She secretly shouted in her heart, "Now!" At the same time, Yun Luo suddenly stretched out her right hand that was hidden in her sleeve. Holding a coldly flickering dagger, she ruthlessly stabbed it towards Bailey Ningsu's chest. The two of them were only 5 steps apart. She could reach Bailey Ningsu with just a stretch of her hand. Her speed was very fast. Moreover, it was an assassination that had been accumulating energy for a long time. It could be said that she was determined to succeed. The coldly flickering dagger was suffused with a blue light. It was obviously dipped in poison. Moreover, this dagger was prepared by Duanmu Huang for Yun Luo. It had already reached the level of a magic tool. There was nothing it couldn't pierce. Bailey Ningsu had just sensed that something was wrong. Before she could react, she only felt a blur in front of her eyes and a cold stab of pain came from her chest. Clang! The chopstick-length dagger ruthlessly stabbed towards Bailey Ningsu's left chest. However, it was blocked by something, letting out a metallic sound. Yun Luo immediately sensed that something was wrong. She stared at Bailey Ningsu's wound and saw that she was actually wearing a tight-fitting soft armor. That dark golden soft armor was also a magic tool. Its defensive power was very strong. Although the dagger tore through the soft armor and successfully stabbed into Bailey Ningsu's chest. However, the position of the wound was a bit off. The dagger didn't pierce through her heart. Chapter 749. Bailey Ningsu's face turned as white as snow, her eyes wide open. She looked at the dagger in her chest, then slowly raised her head to look at Yun Luo, revealing an expression of disbelief. She simply couldn't believe it, and coldly asked, "Ji Tianxing, you? Why?" Yun Luo used her right hand to pull the dagger out. The dagger immediately brought out a stream of hot blood, spraying onto the table. She looked at Bailey Ning Su with a cold smile, and coldly shouted, "Why should I kill you? Don't you understand? Yao Yao and I are truly in love, but you're obstructing us in every way possible. As long as I kill you, no one will be able to stop me from being together with Yao Yao." Hearing Yun Luo's words, Bailey Ning Su's body trembled, and she suddenly revealed a bitter, cold smile. "Ha, Ji Dinsheng. I only recently accepted you, and wanted to discuss the matter between you and Yao Yao. I didn't expect that you're so dignified and refined on the surface, but your heart is actually so vicious and ruthless. I must have been blind to actually believe you." Bailey Ning Su angrily shouted, and immediately raised her right hand, exploding with all her strength, and fiercely slapped towards Yun Luo. Although Bailey Ning Su was stabbed by the dagger, poisoned, and had a black line on her neck, she was still the Yun Luo clan's master. She was still the Yun clan's matriarch, a Sky Origin Stage 7th layer expert. Filled with grief and anger, she hatefully sent out a palm strike, containing a valiant power, releasing a dazzling light. However, Yun Luo was already prepared, and immediately raised her arms in front of her, blocking Bailey Ning Su's palm strike. Bang! Yun Luo was hit by the five-colored palm, and was sent flying, fiercely slamming into the wall. Bang! With a muffled sound, Yun Luo crashed into the wall, creating a human-shaped hole, and fell into the next room. The entire wall was torn apart and immediately collapsed, turning into rubble that came crashing down. Yun Luo rolled on the ground twice, and then jumped up to his feet. Her strength was not much weaker than Bailey Ning Su's, and she was already prepared, even wearing a tight armor. The power of Bailey Ning Su's palm was completely neutralized by her, and she was not injured in the slightest. Bailey Ning Su, prepare to die. Yun Luo's killing intent soared as he charged at Bailey Ning Su like a bolt of lightning, stabbing his dagger towards her throat. The poison in Bailey Ning Su's body had already flared up, and the true essence in her body was blocked. She actually couldn't use much strength. When she saw Ji Tianxing charging towards her, she could only retreat and take out a white silk Dharma artifact from her interspatial ring to block the attack. Chaotic dance of heavenly stars. Bailey Ning Su shouted in a low voice. Her left hand covered the bleeding wound while her right hand waved the white silk magic tool, scattering specks of light towards Yun Luo. Peng ping peng. Yun Luo desperately brandished his dagger, stabbing out dozens of cold lights, shattering Bailey Ning Su's attack. The violent energy exploded, immediately turning the luxurious and elegant room into a mess. Both the ground and the walls were cracked, and dense cracks appeared on their surface. The tables, chairs, and furniture in the room were all blown to pieces, splashing everywhere and creating muffled, pung ping ping sounds when they hit the walls. Yun Luo took this opportunity to pass through the scattered starlight, instantly arriving in front of Bailey Ning Su and stabbing his dagger towards her throat. Bailey Ning Su didn't have time to dodge and could only lean backwards to avoid this fatal blow. Rip. The dagger glowing with blue light tore through her robe and soft armor on her right shoulder, leaving behind a chopstick-sized wound. The wound was so deep that bone could be seen, and blood immediately spurted out. Bailey Ning Su was sent flying by the powerful impact, crashing into a wall and tumbling into the living room outside the room. Her injuries were even more disastrous, and the poison in her body was difficult to suppress, fiercely erupting. She could no longer muster any strength, and her entire body became limp and powerless. Black lines appeared on her snow-white cheeks. Bailey Ning Su still had the graceful posture of a mother, but now her hair was disheveled, her body was covered in blood, and her appearance was extremely miserable. The phoenix tail jade crown on her head and the golden buyao in her hair all fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Without waiting for her to crawl up from the ground, Yun Luo rushed over again. Yun Luo coldly shouted with a murderous aura. He fiercely waved his dagger, fiercely stabbing it towards Bailey Ning Su's forehead. Seeing that Bailey Ning Su's strength was scattered, she was unable to block the attack and was about to lose her life. At this critical moment, the door was smashed into smithereens with a bang. Two tall and sturdy figures rushed in like ferocious tigers. These two people were wearing silver armor and holding standard swords. They were clearly the guards of the Thousand Cloud Palace. Besides, they were both leaders of the guards who were at the third level of the Sky Origin stage. Bold thief, hand over your life. You dare to assassinate the mistress, you're courting death. When the two guard commanders saw the situation in the room, they were so angry that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets as they shouted. The two of them rushed to Bailey Ningsu's side with the fastest speed in their lives. Without hesitation, they stood in front of Bailey Ningsu, using their flesh and blood to block Yun Luo's attack. Puchi! The cold glint of the dagger instantly pierced through the throat of one of the guard commanders. A bloody hole appeared in the guard commander's throat as he spat out a mouthful of hot blood. His eyes widened on the spot as he stopped breathing and fell to the ground. The other guard commander was furious. He used all of his strength to brandish his sword, fiercely stabbing it towards Yun Luo. Yun Luo's attack was blocked. He immediately jumped back and brandished his dagger to fight with the guard commander. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Bailey Ningsu hurriedly crawled up from the ground and retreated to the door. After exchanging 3 moves with the guard commander, Yun Luo heavily injured the guard commander and chopped off one of his arms. However, the sound of the battle had already alarmed the entire Thousand Cloud Palace. Countless dazzling flames lit up the palace. More than a dozen silver-armored guards were rushing over as fast as lightning. Even those loyal maids and maids hurriedly shouted for help and quickly came to rescue the mistress. Bang, bang, bang! Following a series of muffled footsteps, a noble young master dressed in luxurious clothes arrived with a few guards. The person was Zhu Fifan. As soon as he rushed into the room, he saw that the room was in a mess. There was also a guard commander's corpse lying on the ground. His concubine's clothes were stained with blood and her injuries were quite serious. She looked very miserable. And the person who assassinated Bailey Ningsu was actually Ji Tianxing. Zhu Fifan suddenly glared at him and shouted with shock and anger, Ji Tianxing, it's actually you. You vicious bastard, you dare to assassinate the mistress? Seeing Zhu Fifan rushing into the room with the guards, Yun Luo was immediately filled with anger and showed a strong resentment in her eyes. Although her heart was full of unwillingness, she had to accept the reality. Chapter 750. Yun Luo hated that she couldn't kill Bailey Ningsu quickly. Instead, she alarmed the guards of the Thousand Cloud Palace. By now, more and more guards and maids were rushing over. It was impossible for her to continue to assassinate Bailey Ningsu. If she continued to stay, when the experts of the Yun family arrived, her identity would be exposed. Thinking of this, she suppressed the anger and killing intent in her heart and turned around to escape without hesitation. Bang! Yun Luo turned into a ball of golden light, crashed through the side window and escaped from Bailey Ningsu's room. In the blink of an eye, she escaped from the Thousand Cloud Palace and into the dark night, fleeing far away. Ji Tianxing, you bastard, don't think you can escape. In the room, Zhu Fifan cursed furiously. He subconsciously rushed forward and wanted to lead the guards to chase Ji Tianxing. However, he was only in the Yuan Dan stage and couldn't fly. When he saw Bailey Ningsu's serious injuries, he immediately stopped and asked with concern, Aunt, how are your injuries? Are you all right? Bailey Ningsu had already taken out a spirit pill and temporarily blocked the poison in her body with the help of the pill. She inherited most of the medical skills of Divine Dr. Bailey and was also a medical master. For a short time, she could still resist the poison in her body and her life would not be in danger. Bailey Ningsu sat on the chair with a pale face, waved her hand and said in a weak voice, Don't worry about me, I can still hold on. Take some men and chase after him immediately. You must capture Ji Tianxing. Zhu Fifan no longer hesitated and quickly cupped his fist to accept the order and left the room with a group of guards. Everyone rushed out of the Thousand Cloud Palace and saw Yun Luo's figure disappear in the night sky. Zhu Fifan waved his hand and gave the order, leading the 9 guards to chase with all their strength. Swish, swish, swish. Everyone's speed was extremely fast, like lightning cutting through the night sky, quickly passing through 2 palaces and a house. However, when everyone chased to a straight bluestone road, they completely lost track of Yun Luo and could no longer catch up. The 9 guards had to stop and frowned at Zhu Fifan, waiting for him to make a decision. Zhu Fifan panted and looked around sharply, looking for traces of Yun Luo. Damn Ji Tianxing, he escaped. However, his evil deeds have been exposed, he can't escape from Cloud's Spirit Palace. Zhu Fifan could not understand why Ji Tianxing was so reckless and impulsive to assassinate Bailey Ningsu. Yun Luo, this was obviously a good thing for him. At the very least, after this incident, Ji Tianxing would be Cloud's Soul Palace's enemy. It would be impossible for him to obtain Miracle Dr. Bailey's medical skills. Ji Tianxing, that idiot, is as stupid as a pig. He is die, he is die. He's, Yun's Yun suddenly, at this moment, he suddenly saw 2 figures appear on the bluestone road in front of him. It was a young man in a white robe and an ice blue fox, who were rushing towards them. When Zhu Fifan saw the appearance of the white-robed young man, his face was suddenly full of astonishment, and his eyes were full of doubts. Ji Tianxing? He actually escaped back here? In the blink of an eye, Ji Tianxing and Qian Yu rushed to the front of the crowd and were about to pass by them. Zhu Fifan frowned and had some doubts in his mind. This guy is with a pet. It seems that he is going to the Thousand Cloud Palace? Shouldn't he be running for his life? What is he trying to do? Zhu Fifan vaguely felt that something was wrong, but he did not want to think too much. He waved his hand and ordered without hesitation, "Catch him! Don't let him escape!" The 9 guards didn't think too much about it. They just obeyed orders and orders. They immediately drew their swords and sabers and surrounded Ji Tianxing and Qian Yu in a flash. Swish, swish, swish. 9 gleaming swords were pointed at Ji Tianxing's neck, chest, and other vital parts. Ji Tianxing was forced to stop in his tracks. He furrowed his brows in confusion. He looked at Zhu Fifan sharply and asked in a deep voice, "Zhu Fifan, what are you trying to do?" Zhu Fifan sneered and said contemptuously, "What am I trying to do? Ji Tianxing, don't play dumb with me. You have committed such a heinous crime. You deserve to die." A hint of astonishment flashed in Ji Tianxing's eyes as he subconsciously asked, "What heinous crime? Zhu Fifan, don't slander me." Qian Yu did not speak, but she was annoyed and murmured in her heart, "It's over. I knew something big was going to happen." Sure enough, Zhu Fifan looked at Ji Tianxing contemptuously and said coldly, "Ji Tianxing, you are about to die and you are still pretending? Just now, you broke into the Qianyun Palace and tried to assassinate my aunt. You almost killed her. To think that our Cloud Spirit Palace has treated you so well. You are a beast with a human face. How dare you do such a cruel and vicious thing?" Upon hearing these words, Ji Tianxing's body trembled and his pupils constricted. What? Someone tried to assassinate Madame Yun? It was definitely not me. Someone pretended to be me and tried to assassinate her. Although Ji Tianxing tried his best to explain, Zhu Fifan did not believe him. "Ha! Ji Tianxing, you really won't give up until you see the coffin. You can play dumb. I don't want to talk nonsense with you." After saying that, Zhu Fifan ordered the 9 guards, "What are you waiting for? Catch him." 2 of the guards immediately took out cold iron chains made of 1,000-years-old cold iron, wanting to tie Ji Tianxing up. Ji Tianxing waved his hands and slapped the 2 guards away. Zhu Fifan suddenly shouted angrily, "Ji Tianxing, how dare you hurt people? Since you are so stubborn, I will inform the punishment hall and ask them to take you to the ice prison." Ji Tianxing was stunned. He suddenly realized that it was not the time to quarrel and resist. If he continued to quarrel, it would only make things worse and more chaotic. So, he suppressed the anger in his heart and calmed down. He said in a low voice, "Zhu Fifan, I want to see Madame Yun. I didn't do this. As long as I confront her, the truth will be revealed." Seeing that he stopped resisting, Zhu Fifan sneered, "Good. Since you still refuse to admit your guilt, I will take you to the Qianyun Palace to confront her. Let's see how you will quibble." After saying that, he ordered the guards to escort Ji Tianxing and rush towards the Thousand-Cloud Palace as fast as the wind. After a quarter of an hour, everyone arrived at the Qianyun Palace. They quickly went upstairs and entered Bailey Ningsu's room. At this time, Bailey Ningsu's room was full of people. More than 30 elite guards were guarding outside the room. They were full of killing intent. Chapter 751. The atmosphere in the room was cold, solemn, and somewhat oppressive. Bailey Ningsu was sitting on a rattan chair, silently circulating her energy to dissolve the poison in her body. Two Yun family elders were working together to help her resist the corrosion of the poison. Everyone's expression was full of anger, and their eyes were full of killing intent. "Aunt, I've already caught Ji Tianxing," Zhu Fifan shouted in a low voice, and brought Ji Tianxing into the room. When Ji Tianxing stepped into the room, everyone turned their heads to look at him in unison. Their eyes were filled with intense hostility and killing intent. As soon as Ji Tianxing entered the room, he quickly saw the situation inside. Several walls collapsed, the windows were broken, and many of the furnishings were shattered. Bailey Ningsu was covered in blood, and she looked a bit embarrassed. The scene was a mess, and there was no doubt that a fierce battle had just happened here. Ji Tianxing's mood was a bit gloomy, and he secretly clenched his fists. But he kept calm, and walked in front of Bailey Ningsu, and cupped his hands in salute. "Junior greets aunt." Bailey Ningsu temporarily stopped circulating her energy, and slowly opened her eyes. She looked at Ji Tianxing indifferently, and a trace of hatred flashed in her eyes. She said in a cold voice, "You don't have the qualifications to call me aunt. I really believed in you, and that's why I was killed by you." Ji Tianxing shook his head and hurriedly explained, "Auntie, please believe me. I didn't do it. Before today, I've been cultivating in Hefeng Garden, and I haven't even stepped out of the door. Just now, Qian Yu saw someone pretending to be me, and rushed to Thousand Cloud Palace, and quickly reported the news to me. When I heard the news, I hurriedly rushed over with Qian Yu, but I didn't expect that I would still be a step too late." Bailey Ningsu looked at him coldly, and didn't move at all. "Twisting words and forcing logic." Zhu Fifan coldly snorted, and contemptuously sneered, "Ji Tianxing, in order to shirk responsibility, you even made up such a lie. You're really shameless." Ji Tianxing looked at him sharply, and said in a deep voice, "I'm not lying, this is what Qian Yu saw with his own eyes, he can testify." Qian Yu quickly nodded, and said in a serious tone, "Yes, just half an hour ago, I saw a maid pretending to be old Ji." "Haha." Zhu Fifan suddenly laughed, and looked at Ji and asked, "A maid pretending to be you? Which maid in Cloud Spirit Palace looks like a man?" "Ji Tianxing, can't you at least make up a better lie? Can you please think before you speak?" As he spoke, he said Qian Yu, and Qian Yu said, "You of course, Qian Yu, Qian Yus. Qian Ian Qian, and you, Qian Ian. Ji Tianxing frowned and shouted, "Zhu Fifan. Both of you shut up." Bailey Ningsu saw the two of them bickering and finally spoke up. Ji Tianxing and Zhu Fifan immediately stopped quarreling, and turned to look at her. Bailey Ningsu's cheeks and lips were as pale as paper, and her breath was a little chaotic and weak. She looked at Ji Tianxing indifferently, and said in a low voice, "Ji Tianxing, even if I believe that you are innocent, someone might have pretended to be you and tried to assassinate me. However, no matter how good the disguise is, it can only imitate a person's appearance and voice, but it can't imitate your breath. Everyone's breath is different, and they all have their own characteristics. I am no stranger to your breath, and the person who tried to assassinate me just now was clearly your breath. Ji Tianxing, how do you explain this?" Ji Tianxing was suddenly speechless, and he frowned hard. Hundreds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and he racked his brain to think of an explanation. At the same time, his eyes swept across the messy room, trying to find some clues to analyze the truth. Zhu Fifan saw that he was silent, and sneered, "Ji Tianxing, you have nothing to say, right? You can't argue, right? Ji Tianxing suddenly thought of something, and suddenly a light flashed through his mind. He looked at Bailey Ningsu with burning eyes, and said seriously, "Auntie, what you just said is wrong. Ordinary disguise is naturally unable to imitate another person's breath. However, you should know about the Murong family. Their inherited secret technique can not only imitate another person's appearance and voice, but also imitate a special breath." This time, without waiting for Zhu Fifan to refute, Bailey Ningsu shook her head and said coldly, "Ji Tianxing, of course I know about the Murong family's secret technique. However, this excuse of yours is too far-fetched. Could it be that someone from the Murong family sneaked into Cloud Soul Palace and pretended to be you to assassinate me? What do you think Cloud Soul Palace is? How could someone from the Murong family sneak in?" Ji Tianxing was once again speechless, unable to refute. Bailey Ningsu looked at him indifferently and continued, "You just said that you've been cultivating in Hefeng Garden for the past 2 days, and you haven't even stepped out of the door. Then let me ask you, other than your pet, who can testify for you?" Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment, then quickly said, "For the past few days, a maid named Xiao Yi has been serving me in Hefeng Garden. She can testify for me." In fact, Xiao Yi was Yun Yao's trusted maid, and she was purposely arranged to serve Ji Tianxing in Hefeng Garden. Bailey Ningsu looked at a guard commander and ordered, "Go to Hefeng Garden and bring the maid Xiao Yi here." "Understood." The guard commander cupped his fists and accepted the order, then quickly left the room and rushed to Hefeng Garden. The room fell into silence, and everyone waited patiently. Soon, a quarter of an hour passed. The guard commander came back with a delicate and pretty maid. It was Xiao Yi. Everyone's eyes suddenly gathered on her, revealing an expectant look. Xiao Yi's figure was slightly thin, and her personality was simple and introverted. She had never seen such a big scene, and after being brought into the room, she timidly lowered her head, feeling very nervous. "Servant Xiao Yi greets mistress." Xiao Yi trembled as she walked in front of Bailey Ningsu, and respectfully bowed. Bailey Ningsu looked at her indifferently and asked in a dignified tone, "Xiao Yi, I ask you, for the past 2 days, has Ji Tianxing been cultivating in Hefeng Garden?" Xiao Yi didn't dare to speak and only nodded, "Yes." Hearing her answer honestly, Ji Tianxing secretly let out a sigh of relief. Zhu Fifan frowned, and his expression was somewhat gloomy. Bailey Ningsu continued to ask Xiao Yi, "An hour ago, was Ji Tianxing still cultivating in his room? Did he leave Hefeng Garden?" This. Xiao Yi suddenly hesitated and didn't dare to speak. "Speak. If you dare lie to me, I won't forgive you." Bailey Ningsu's voice was ice cold as she shouted. Chapter 752. Xiao Yi's reply caused everyone's expression to change. Bailey Ningsu expressionlessly looked at her and continued to ask, "You were ordered to serve Ji Tianxing in Hefeng Garden, but you weren't there. Where did you go?" Xiao Yi fearfully lowered her head, her voice carrying a sobbing tone. "This servant followed eldest Mrs. orders and went to the kitchen to bring young Master Ji some spiritual porridge. For the past 2 days, after nightfall, this servant would go to the kitchen and leave for an hour. When this servant brought the spiritual porridge back to Hefeng Garden, young Master Ji was no longer in his room." Hearing her reply, Ji Tianxing's expression immediately changed, his heart cursing. But he also knew that what Xiao Yi said was the truth. Bailey Ningsu glanced at Ji Tianxing, then continued to ask Xiao Yi, "Then do you know when Ji Tianxing left Hefeng Garden?" "Mistress, this servant also doesn't know." Xiao Yi didn't dare to hide anything and could only answer truthfully. Bailey Ningsu took a deep breath, suppressing the anger in her heart. Expressionlessly, she said, "You may withdraw." Xiao Yi replied. She hurriedly bowed and left the room. After Xiao Yi left, Bailey Ningsu looked at Ji Tianxing, her voice cold as ice. "Ji Tianxing, Xiao Yi can't prove your innocence. What else do you have to say?" Ji Tianxing's expression was somewhat unsightly, but he could only speak with sincerity. "Aunt, I know you don't believe me, but this is indeed a coincidence. This incident happened so suddenly. Please give me some time. I will definitely find out the truth and prove my innocence." Bailey Ningsu shook her head, expressionlessly saying, "No need to say anything more. As for the truth of the matter, I will be able to discern it." After saying that, she looked at the two elders beside her and ordered in a deep voice, "Elders, take Ji Tianxing away and lock him up in the ice prison. Guard him strictly. After I report this matter to the family head, we will convict him." Ji Tianxing immediately revealed an anxious expression, still wanting to explain. However, Bailey Ningsu had already closed her eyes, clearly unwilling to listen to him. The two elders no longer hesitated, their faces cold as ice as they walked to Ji Tianxing's side. They stretched out their steel-like hands and grabbed his arms. The two of them grabbed his arms, one on the left and one on the right, and walked out of Bailey Ningsu's room. The two elders of the Yun clan were experts, both at the 7th or 8th level of Sky Origin stage. If Ji Tianxing struggled with all his might, there was a great chance that he would be able to break free and escape from the two elders. But if he really did that, there would be another conflict, and the conflict between him and Cloud Spirit Palace would become even more intense. It would only make this matter harder to explain clearly. Thus, he could only keep his calm and let the two elders to hold him. Not long after, the two elders escorted him out of the Thousand Cloud Palace, heading towards the ice prison deep underground. Qian Yu was not captured, but it was worried about Ji Tianxing's safety, so it followed Ji Tianxing all the way, unwilling to leave. After a while, Ji Tianxing was about to be taken to the underground ice prison. Seeing Qian Yu still following him, he said to it with a serious face, "Qian Yu, you can't follow me to the ice prison. Go back now and look for Yao Yao immediately. Tell her about this matter clearly. Madame Yun won't believe me, only Yao Yao will. Maybe she can help me find out the truth. This is my only chance to clear my name and prove my innocence." Qian Yu understood the urgency of the situation, so it quickly stopped and nodded. It said seriously, "Old Ji, don't worry. I will go find Yun Yao now. Don't worry, we will find a way to save you and prove your innocence." After that, Qian Yu quickly turned around and left. Ji Tianxing was escorted by two elders. They passed through the dimly lit tunnel and walked towards the depths of the underground. Not long after, he was taken to the ice prison. The ice prison was a prison built by the Yun family in the mountains. It was protected by a powerful array and was guarded by many elite guards. The entire prison was made of ice. The temperature was so low that even the air was frozen. If an Origin Core stage martial artist was imprisoned here, they would have to endure the corrosion of the extremely cold air at all times, and would definitely experience a pain worse than death. Although Sky Origin stage cultivators could withstand the extreme cold, they would still find it unbearable. Both their minds and bodies would be tortured. After all, the ice prison was dark, cold, and silent. It made people feel sad and lonely. Ji Tianxing was locked in a prison cell with a radius of 5 meters. The entire prison cell was made of ice bricks and was sealed by an invisible array. There was nothing in the prison cell. The walls were white and there was no other color. After the door of the prison cell was closed and the two elders left, the prison cell fell into silence. Ji Tianxing stood alone in the prison cell. He thought about what had happened and tried to find some clues. He still couldn't figure out who wanted to frame him. Why did they do it? What was their goal? Inside the Thousand Cloud Palace, the lights were bright and the atmosphere was tense. Bailey Ningsu and the others left the room and entered the main hall. The guards and maids were standing guard outside the main hall. There were only a few people in the main hall. Bailey Ningsu sat on a jade lotus platform. Her face was pale and her eyes were closed. She was recuperating from her injuries. Her father, Divine Dr. Bailey, had heard the news and rushed over. He was using a soul secret technique to help her expel the poison and treat her injuries. Even the head of the family, Yun Zhongqi, was alarmed. He stood beside Bailey Ningsu and looked at her with concern. His face was full of worry. He already knew what had happened. His mood was very complicated and heavy. At this moment, a graceful figure in a long white dress stepped through the door like a gust of wind and entered the hall. It was Yun Yao. She had just learned that her mother had been assassinated and rushed over as fast as she could. Sush. Yun Yao rushed into the main hall. When she saw Bailey Ningsu covered in blood and in a miserable state, her face was full of worry. She saw that her grandfather was treating her mother. She didn't dare to disturb him. She looked at her father, Yun Zhongqi, and asked in a low voice, "Father, how are my mother's injuries? Is it serious?" Sigh. Yun Zhongqi sighed and said in a low voice, "Your mother's injuries are very serious. She was almost stabbed in the heart and died on the spot. Moreover, the assassin's dagger was dipped in poison. It has already entered her heart." Yun Zhongqi saw that Yun Yao's expression changed drastically. He was extremely worried. He quickly comforted her, "Yao Yao, don't worry. Your grandfather is here. Your mother will be fine." Only then did Yun Yao feel a little relieved. She asked in a gloomy tone, "Father, have you caught the assassin? Who is so vicious and savage that they dared to assassinate my mother in Cloud Spirit Palace?" Yun Zhongqi glanced at her and said with a strange expression, "The assassin is Ji Tenxing." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.